A blood-red sun hung ominously in the sky, heralding a world transformed. In the midst of this apocalyptic landscape, an unremarkable little zombie endured countless trials and tribulations, evolving continuously until it ultimately ascended to the status of the zombie overlord. Dear viewers, recently, an unprecedented radiance has manifested in the skies of major cities, drawing attention from all corners. On the morning of March 21st, as dawn broke over Nanli City, a sudden and intense brilliance enveloped the entire city, rendering it as bright as day. Similarly, around 8 o'clock in the evening of April 15th, Behu City, which had already slipped into night, was also illuminated by a powerful light, prompting numerous citizens to voice their complaints about their inability to sleep. In the early hours of June 7th, the city of Yangqing also experienced this extraordinary luminosity, awakening many residents, with some even hastily preparing to head to work. As this powerful light emerged, the duration of daylight gradually extended, with some cities experiencing as little as 3 hours of night. In response to the widespread insomnia, certain companies have begun implementing a 9-6-6 work schedule to alleviate the boredom of the populace. To provide reassurance to the public, our station has invited the esteemed expert Wang Zhuanjia, who will offer a scientific explanation. Li Xiaofeng reclined on his sofa, sipping a fizzy drink and watching the news on television, occasionally munching on potato chips, thoroughly enjoying himself. He paid little heed to the televised reports, as his city, Wuning, had not experienced such intense light. The news felt distant and irrelevant to him. At that moment, Li Xiaofeng's mind was more preoccupied with the upcoming college entrance examination, which he deemed far more pressing. Greetings, dear viewers. I am Wang Zhuanjia. For several decades, I have dedicated myself to the fields of astronomy and geography. From the moment the first strong light appeared, I began leading a team to conduct research. After countless nights of study, I have concluded that this intense light is merely a normal reaction of the sun, which I shall refer to as the solar flare period. There is no cause for alarm. This is entirely within the realm of normalcy. Some may inquire how long this phenomenon will persist. I should clarify that since the light appeared in Yangqing City on June 7th, it is now September, and no other cities have reported such brightness. My analysis indicates that the solar flare period has definitively concluded, as Yangqing City was the last to experience this phenomenon, signifying that the sun's exuberance has waned. Therefore, you may all rest assured. This expert hereby solemnly declares that the solar flare period has entirely passed. What is this? Who turned on the spotlight? It has vanished. Li Xiaofeng chuckled as he watched Wang Zhuanjia on television, just as the strong light re-emerged 3 months later. The show's dramatic effect was undeniably impressive. He stood up, preparing to dispose of the trash and tackle his weekend homework. With a soft sigh, he lamented that tomorrow would be Monday, and he would have to return to school. As he turned off the television, a wave of panic arose in the program, but unfortunately, he did not hear it. Since childhood, Li Xiaofeng had been left alone after his parents perished in an accident, leaving him only this house and sufficient funds for his university education. He had spent many years in solitude, becoming entirely accustomed to it. The college entrance examination, Li Xiaofeng murmured to himself as he slowly rose. But just then, a brilliant light suddenly flooded through the window, overwhelming in intensity and rendering it nearly impossible to open his eyes. He hurried to the window, shielding his eyes with his hands, and cautiously peered through the slits, eager to discern what was transpiring outside. In that moment, his mouth fell agape, and his heart raced furiously. The blinding radiance illuminated every corner of the city, akin to the descent of a deity, yet it heralded not an era of prosperity. The fierce light instigated a cacophony of accidents on the streets, accompanied by screams and shouts of anger echoing relentlessly. This illumination was unlike any previously encountered, magnitude stronger than before. On that day, all beings transformed into light. Li Xiaofeng hastily drew the curtains tighter. If this light persisted, his eyes would surely be blinded. He turned around and switched on the television, intent on discovering the cause of the chaos. Dear viewers, the broadcast continued. Just as Li Xiaofeng turned on the TV, a crackling sound erupted, the signal appeared to falter, and the picture became fragmented. Monsters, oh heavens! Help me, save me! The screen began to manifest anguished cries and desperate pleas, the sounds piercing and filled with despair. A sudden jolt of fear surged within Li Xiaofeng. Could it be? Could something truly catastrophic be unfolding? Why did it feel so eerily unsettling? Before he could ponder further, a sharp pain jolted through Li Xiaofeng sought to gaze upon his own reflection, his body contorted as he made his way to the restroom. The bathroom was not far from the living room, merely a few steps away. Yet today, what should have been a trivial distance felt insurmountable. It was as if his body was no longer under his control, his legs refused to bend, and his joints seemed to have frozen, rendering his gait exceedingly peculiar. In this moment, He pondered whether, should he participate in a fashion show, he might astonish the audience. Such a walk was beyond the capabilities of an ordinary person. After several minutes, Li Xiaofeng nearly dragged himself into the bathroom. Fortunately, he was accustomed to solitude and always left the door ajar while using the restroom. Otherwise, the effort required to open it again would have been arduous. At this moment, he felt immensely grateful for this particular trait. As he approached the mirror, he was taken aback by the visage that stared back at him. His complexion was pallid, his hair sparse, and his eyes were bloodshot, devoid of emotion. His mouth hung slightly ajar, drooling uncontrollably, presenting a ghastly image akin to that of a zombie. Had he truly transformed into a zombie? Moreover, was his body not excessively rigid? The thin strands of hair atop his head resembled those of a programmer who had spent decades coding. His eyes were not only red but also widened to an alarming extent, as if the eyeballs themselves were about to pop out. The sight frightened him. His mouth resembled that of a wild beast, dripping with saliva. In this moment, his heart was a tumult of conflicting emotions. Ding. Life status of the host is being detected. Host race is being analyzed. Completion of all checks confirmed. Initiating transformation. Zombie evolution system binding commencing. 1. 50. 99. System binding complete. Activation is now underway. While Li Xiaofeng marveled at his appearance, a cold, mechanical voice echoed in his mind. A system? Even transformed into a zombie, he remained the protagonist. He wished to tilt his head skyward, yearning to convey his isolation at such heights. However, a sudden, crisp crack of bone caused his body to stiffen instantaneously. How could he forget that he was now a zombie? Gently lowering his head, he cautiously adjusted it with his hands, uncertain whether he could survive without it. Suddenly, a panel appeared in his mind, revealing a single option labeled host information. He focused his thoughts, and the interface materialized before his eyes. Host, Li Xiaofeng rank, Stage 1 Ordinary Zombie Evolution Value, 0-100 Talent, Fractured Nerves, Viral Infection. Bloody Evolution Fractured Nerves. Due to the infection of the zombie virus, multiple nerves in your body have been damaged, bestowing upon you the following zombie characteristics. 1. Your bodily movements are sluggish, with stiff joints, making it difficult to keep pace with ordinary humans. You have lost the sensation of pain, and your vision and hearing have been significantly diminished. However, your sense of smell remains acutely sharp, enabling you to detect fresh flesh from hundreds of meters away. As a zombie, fatigue is no longer a concern for you. Given sufficient time, you could amble around the planet. The zombie virus has amplified your strength to more than 3 times that of an average adult male. Infection. The zombie virus within you possesses formidable contagiousness. Any human you bite will become one of your kind. Bloody evolution. With each new infected individual, the virus in your body will strengthen, granting you evolution points. Skills, none. Evaluation. This is an unremarkable little zombie, evenly matched with an ordinary adult male, provided you can catch up to them. Li Xiaofeng's lips twitched slightly. Although the numerous lines of text appeared impressive, upon closer inspection, they seemed rather feeble. Aren't zombies in the apocalypse known for relentlessly pursuing and slaughtering humans? How has it come to pass that I am merely even with them? Li Xiaofeng felt a pang of disappointment. He had anticipated a rise to power, only to discover he was still quite weak. Chapter 3. Instinct. Suddenly, Li Xiaofeng seemed to hear faint screams, akin to the buzzing of mosquitoes nearby. He slowly approached the window, gazing out at the scene, and was momentarily stunned. The blinding light had vanished, replaced by a crimson glow that cast an ominous, bloody atmosphere over the earth. Outside, people were continuously screaming in terror as they fled, pursued by sluggish zombies. Although the crowd was panicked, few were bitten by the undead. Their speed was simply too slow. Only a handful of individuals, overwhelmed by fear and despair, sat weeping in place, becoming victims as zombies seized them, tearing away a significant portion of flesh, causing them to faint from shock. Yet Li Xiaofeng understood that those unfortunate souls would soon be infected, inevitably transforming into new zombies. The streets were largely dominated by the undead. It appeared that the virus's capacity for infection was indeed formidable. He sighed softly, realizing that he stood once again on the side of the masses, grasping the essence of truth. Individuals had already fled to the base of Li Xiaofeng's building. Observing the terrified crowd, instinctively, Li Xiaofeng felt an urge to bite them, his eyes growing increasingly crimson, a hint of madness creeping into his demeanor. Was this the instinct of a zombie? He subtly twitched his nose, the aroma of delectable prey wafting towards him, almost compelling him to leap from the building. Yet he forcefully quelled that thought. To perish immediately upon becoming a zombie would render his future endeavors within the horde futile. Recalling his innate ability, bloody evolution, a flicker of hope ignited within Li Xiaofeng. It seemed there was still potential for him to grow stronger. He resolved to seize this moment while the people were paralyzed with fear and dared not confront the zombies, to achieve further evolution and become a formidable entity. If he waited until they regained their composure, the zombies would likely find it much more challenging to act with such impunity, not to mention the possibility of military intervention. Bullets and cannons were not something he could withstand in his current state. Evolution, evolution. Delectable humans, I am coming. Am I not human? How could such terrifying thoughts arise? Suddenly, a jolt of realization struck Li Xiaofeng. Although he had transformed into a zombie, his mind should still retain its humanity. However, this exhilarating sensation emanating from his soul abruptly interrupted his contemplation. With a hoarse roar, Li Xiaofeng exuded an air of dominance. In a moment of turning, he lost control of his body and fell once again, his head colliding with the toilet, shattering the imposing aura he had hoped to project. Damn it! 1,000 beasts seemed to roar through Li Xiaofeng's mind. It was unbearably difficult. He twisted awkwardly, and through relentless friction, finally arrived at the door. He attempted to bend his hands, but this seemingly simple action proved exceedingly challenging. His fingers could only curl slightly, unable to form a proper fist. Fortunately, opening the door was not overly complicated. With a sudden slap of his right hand against the doorknob and a thrust of his body forward, the door swung open. However, due to his inability to halt his momentum, he once again tumbled at the threshold. Run from the zombies. A panicked crowd was fleeing down the nearby emergency stairs. And upon seeing Li Xiaofeng's grotesque posture and menacing arms, they erupted in terrified screams. Emitting a beastly growl, Li Xiaofeng sent the crowd scattering. Too frightened to remain on this floor, he slowly rose, indifferent to the fleeing individuals. Not only were they much faster than him, but even the staircase presented an insurmountable challenge. Circumventing the emergency stairs, he arrived at the elevator, deciding that if he could not catch the fleeing humans, he would wait here like a predator. Despite his transformation into a zombie, his intellect remained intact. Gently extending his pale right hand, he pressed the elevator button. He positioned himself close to the elevator doors, seemingly able to scent the fresh blood and flesh. Residing on the 9th floor, he watched the elevator ascend slowly. An involuntary tremor of excitement coursing through him, akin to the instinctive reflex of blinking or the knee-jerk response, utterly beyond his control. Inside the elevator were a couple. 2 young men, and an elderly man with a child. All 6 wore expressions of sheer terror, their faces pale, with beads of cold sweat dripping from the elderly man's forehead. This apocalyptic crisis had arrived too abruptly. Who could have anticipated that such radiance would carry an insurmountable zombie virus? Grandpa, I'm so scared, wha? The child cried incessantly, his face a mask of fear as he clutched his grandfather's hand tightly, trembling uncontrollably. The little boy had witnessed monsters in the street pouncing on people, tearing them apart. And the splattered blood had even stained his shoes, likely becoming a haunting shadow for the rest of his life. Shut up. Stop crying. A college student, filled with fury, shouted. He wore glasses, and though his face appeared delicate, it was now etched with terror and anger. The apocalyptic scene had rendered his nerves sensitive and frail, and the child's incessant wailing only intensified his rage. Chapter 4. A surprising encounter. Young man, you are educated. How can you exhibit such a lack of civility? The elderly man beside the little boy, witnessing his grandson being scolded, immediately reprimanded him. The atmosphere within the elevator erupted into chaos as several individuals began to argue. 2 young men, even displaying a tendency towards physical confrontation, while the couple joined the fray, transforming the scene into utter disarray. The impending doom had instigated a transformation within each of them. Unbeknownst to the 6, the elevator had halted on the 9th floor. As the doors slowly parted, a zombie was pressed against the entrance, its blood-red, merciless eyes fixated on everyone present. A zombie. Quick, escape. The girl's peripheral vision caught sight of Li Xiaofeng, her eyes widening with sheer terror. The bickering ceased abruptly as time seemed to freeze in that moment. All gazes were rigidly directed toward the elevator doors. The cold, crimson eyes, gleaming with a predatory light, revealed a slightly parted mouth, saliva trickling down a face that appeared demonic. Surprise. Li Xiaofeng's mouth gaped open as he emitted a monstrous roar, sending shivers down the spines of the 6 individuals within the elevator. None had anticipated that a zombie would be lying in wait at the elevator entrance. But they were even less prepared for the revelation that it was this very zombie that had pressed the elevator buttons. The man inside the elevator was the first to scream, forcibly shoving his girlfriend out into the fray, colliding with Li Xiaofeng. Wangsu, you beast. The young woman's face was a canvas of despair. She could hardly fathom that her boyfriend, who had always cherished her, would thrust her into peril for his own survival. Dressed lightly, her long, fair legs exposed, and her beauty striking, she found herself in the arms of Li Xiaofeng. Yet, in that moment, he possessed no other thoughts. Instinct drove him as his mouth opened wide and he lunged at her neck. A large chunk of flesh was torn away, and the excruciating pain rendered the woman nearly unconscious, collapsing in his embrace. The other 5 seized the opportunity to panic and flee the elevator, with her boyfriend leading the charge, abandoning her without a second thought. Once Li Xiaofeng injected the virus into the woman's body, an overwhelming sense of euphoria surged from his very soul. He had anticipated that as a former human, biting into the flesh of his kind would evoke feelings of discomfort and disgust, yet he realized he had overestimated his own humanity. The zombie virus appeared to have transformed more than just his physical form. To infect more individuals and achieve evolution was the virus's inherent instinct. Rather than Li Xiaofeng's consciousness controlling his body, it felt more as though the virus was commandeering his very awareness. He had no time to ponder these thoughts when a cold, electronic voice resonated in his mind. Ding. Host has successfully infected a human. Evolution value 10. The evolution value displayed on Li Xiaofeng's panel surged to 10,100. He cradled the unconscious young woman and prepared to embark on his next hunt. Simultaneously, he cast the woman at his feet, eager to observe the duration required for the virus to transform a human into a zombie. The elevator doors incessantly opened, revealing an empty interior. Evidently, during such a crisis, only a minority dared to use the lift. Yet, Li Xiaofeng possessed an abundance of patience. The unconscious woman beside him began to exhibit discernible changes. Her once lovely visage turned pale, and her veins pulsated as if on the verge of bursting. Concurrently, the previously smooth and lustrous skin became desiccated and wrinkled, gradually acquiring the characteristics of a zombie. Minutes later, she astonishingly rose to her feet, her eyes a chilling crimson. Devoid of emotion, her mouth slightly ajar as she emitted a hoarse growl. Li Xiaofeng was taken aback by the terrifying efficiency of the virus, which could convert a human into a zombie in such a short span. However, the newly transformed zombie unexpectedly turned away, seemingly in search of fresh flesh. Li Xiaofeng's desperate roars proved futile. He even rushed before her, raised his arms, opened his mouth, and made a grotesque face to gauge her reaction. Yet, she remained unresponsive. Did she lack any semblance of a soul? It appeared that he was indeed a unique case. But, damn it, wasn't she infected by me? Why does she not heed my command? Ding. The host's rank is too low to dominate the zombie. Li Xiaofeng was momentarily stunned, surprised that the system would answer his query. He silently pondered whether, upon the infection of a human, he could gain advancement points. Ding. The host's zombie virus rank is too low. Secondary infection does not yield advancement points. Damn. My meticulous planning, employing my extraordinary intellect to infect one person, yielded merely 10 advancement points without any additional benefits. Yet, the system merely informed him of his current low rank, which hindered his capabilities. If only his rank were to rise. Li Xiaofeng emitted an eerie chuckle, though only a ghastly howl escaped his lips, sending chills down the spine. Chapter 5. A gift delivered to his door with newfound motivation, he resumed his hunt. His current speed was woefully sluggish, forcing him to rely on a wait-and-see approach. Although inefficient, it was significantly faster than the other zombies. On the 9th floor, where Li Xiaofeng resided, there were 4 households. Adjacent to him lived a young couple. The husband, Lin Quan, and the wife, Shen Yi, had recently married and were striving for their careers, believing their fulfilling and sweet life would persist indefinitely. However, who could have foreseen the apocalypse would erupt so abruptly? Today was the weekend, a rare moment of respite for the couple. While Lin Quan was engrossed in a computer game, an unprecedented, blinding light suddenly burst forth from outside. He instinctively shut his eyes. Fortunately, the blinding glare subsided quickly, replaced by an eerie red glow that enveloped the int. Lin Quan was in a state of panic, having tried various methods to no avail. Just as he was about to call for an ambulance, his wife unexpectedly stood up. The horrifying visage before him was a stark contrast to the beautiful woman he knew. Lin Quan stood frozen in place. With a guttural growl, the wife who had been preparing lunch now regarded him as her meal. Help! Lin Quan shouted in terror, desperately evading her within the confines of their home. Fortunately, her movements were sluggish, making it difficult for her to catch him. Eventually, he flung open the door and bolted outside, aiming to escape to the elevator. To his astonishment, he discovered someone else waiting at the elevator, an individual who appeared to be a student, albeit slightly hunched. As the elevator doors opened, the other person did not enter, prompting Lin Quan to seize the opportunity and step inside. Just as he was about to beckon the student in, he was taken aback. Li Xiaofeng was equally astonished. He had been filled with disappointment over yet another failed hunt, yet here was a prey that had unwittingly walked into his trap. Their gazes locked, and for a fleeting moment, time stood still. Had it not been for the blood trickling from the corner of Li Xiaofeng's mouth and the pallor of Lin Quan's face, This would have been a scene of exquisite beauty. Oh my god. Lin Kuan's voice was hoarse, laced with sheer horror. He could hardly fathom the reality before him. A zombie was waiting for the elevator. What on earth was happening? Li Xiaofeng's mouth cracked into a sinister grin, rendering him even more ghastly. He raised his hands and effectively sealed the elevator door. As the zombie advanced slowly, Lin Kuan's instinct for survival surged to its peak. He lunged forward, attempting to knock the creature down and escape. Yet, Li Xiaofeng was swifter. Seizing the moment when Lin Kuan hesitated, he pounced like a ravenous wolf. Lin Kuan shouted in despair, but it was all in vain. Despite the zombie's sluggishness and rigidity, its strength surpassed that of an ordinary person by more than threefold. Once it had him in its grasp, the outcome was all but inevitable. A gruesome scene unfolded within the elevator. Lin Kuan's neck bled profusely as his screams gradually faded into silence. Li Xiaofeng spat out the remnants of flesh. As the instinct of the zombie virus seemed not to desire the consumption of flesh, but rather the dissemination of the virus to infect others. Ding. Host successfully infected one individual, gaining 10 upgrade points. Li Xiaofeng dragged Lin Kuan's lifeless body out of the elevator and carelessly discarded it on the ground before closing the elevator doors once more. At that moment, a female zombie emerged slowly from a nearby door, and Li Xiaofeng surmised that she must be the wife of the man he had just dispatched, having frightened him out. Just as Lin Kuan had escaped from the jaws of one predator, he had stumbled into the den of another. Li Xiaofeng made a face at the female zombie, but she paid him no heed, beginning to wander in search of humans to infect. The following day passed slowly for Li Xiaofeng as he awaited developments. He had initially believed this plan to be flawless, yet it became evident that others were not foolish. In times of crisis, no one dared to take the elevator. In the past, it was often said that in the event of an emergency, one should avoid the elevator and use the stairs as a safe exit. Little did he know this adage held truth. Within a single day, he had infected 2 more individuals, raising his progression to 40/100. To reach the next level, he needed to infect 6 additional people, which left Li Xiaofeng feeling somewhat despondent. As the fleeing humans returned to their homes, the number of those taking the elevator would inevitably dwindle, especially with the interiors stained with blood. Any rational individual would refrain from using it. He needed to devise alternative hunting strategies. Chapter 6. Intelligence engaged. Li Xiaofeng stepped outside, where a layer of crimson light enveloped the surroundings. He slowly raised his gaze to the sky, only to be astounded by the absence of the sun's familiar glow. Instead, a blood-red sun hung ominously overhead, casting an eerie light over the desolate landscape, further augmenting the macabre atmosphere of this apocalyptic world. The once bustling streets now lay in ruins, littered with countless private vehicles, devoid of any living soul save for the staggering zombies that roamed aimlessly. Dried blood stained the windows, roads, and railings, while a gentle breeze stirred up newspapers and leaves, painting a heart-wrenching tableau of doom. This was humanity's end, yet a golden age for the undead. Gazing at the sanguine sun, Li Xiaofeng rested his chin on his hand, adopting the demeanor of a contemplative thinker. He could ascertain that he had been hunting for at least 10 hours. It was undoubtedly the deep of night. This was a sun that would never set. Suddenly, the security door beside him swung open, and a figure stumbled in, frantically fleeing while emitting terrified screams. To his surprise, a gift had come to him. A surge of excitement coursed through Li Xiaofeng as he ambled forward, his crimson eyes coldly fixated on the person, mouth slightly agape, poised to pounce. In an instant, however, a large yellow dog charged forth, knocking the individual to the ground and sinking its sharp teeth into them. Saliva dripping from its fangs. Blood gushed forth as the dog feasted with a savage delight, its eyes ablaze with ferocity and madness. Li Xiaofeng was momentarily taken aback. But the next moment, he turned with an effortless grace, his movements surprisingly fluid. What the hell? A 2-meter-tall dog. This was surely a beast. He had not anticipated the presence of mutated creatures alongside the zombies. The strength and physique of this creature were entirely on a different level than that of the undead. With Li Xiaofeng's build, he doubted he could withstand even a single swipe. Fortunately, the yellow dog seemed only interested in fresh flesh. Viewing Li Xiaofeng's body as nothing more than a corpse, casting a fleeting glance before losing interest, he staggered back home, his gait peculiar as he cautiously observed the yellow dog, exerting all his strength to close the door behind him. He could hardly fathom the dangers of this world. He needed to evolve swiftly. With just 60 evolution points remaining to reach the next level, his strength would undoubtedly increase. He had to think of other methods. Li Xiaofeng began to ponder. Despite having spent an entire day hunting, he felt not a hint of fatigue. It seemed to be the advantage of being a zombie. Just as a melody played, he was momentarily taken aback to find that his phone was ringing. He approached it slowly. After becoming a zombie, his vision had significantly diminished. Yet he managed to discern the caller ID, 12,138, marked as a suspected scam by 74,360 users. He stood there, momentarily dazed. Was this a display of excessive dedication? What time was it? This was utterly absurd. After ringing for a while, the call was terminated. As the nonsensical call ended, Xiaofeng regained his senses. Was there still a signal? He leaned closer to the phone screen, astonished to see a faint bar of signal at the top. The global communication system had not yet collapsed. Gazing at the device in his hand, a sudden idea struck him. He contemplated a clever plan. He attempted to open the browser, but his fingers were stiff and unbending. Fortunately, by combining the efforts of both hands, he quickly achieved his goal. After half an hour, he finally accomplished what had previously taken mere minutes, staring at the recording on his phone, marveling at his own intellect. Surely he was the brightest among zombies. With his right hand outstretched, he held the phone, staggering as he stepped outside. This peculiar sight regrettably went unnoticed by anyone. Xiaofeng shook his head slightly and glanced around, relieved not to see the yellow-haired monster. In this floor alone, there were 4 households. 3 had perished, leaving only 1 remaining. He arrived at the doorstep of that last house, and, after considerable effort, finally pressed the play button on his phone. Help! Is anyone there to save me? The recording emanated from the phone. Though it sounded odd, at this moment, it was unlikely anyone would take notice, as no one would typically play a recording at such a time. Meanwhile, Xiaofeng's head began to gently collide with the security door. His arms could not bend, rendering a normal knock on the door utterly impractical. A bizarre scene unfolded. A zombie repeatedly struck its head against the door, creating a rhythmic knocking sound. Its arms raised high, effectively obscuring the peephole, while the phone incessantly played the terrified plea for help. Were it not witnessed firsthand, one might truly believe someone was in distress. Who is it? Who's out there? A man's voice called out, filled with curiosity. Yet, outside, there was no response. The repeated cries for help continued, and Xiaofeng quickened the rhythm of his knocking. Chapter 7. The task system. The man held no suspicions. After all, zombies could not speak. Yet, he remained cautious, attempting to ascertain who was outside through the peephole. Yet he was filled with disappointment. The cat's eye seemed to be obstructed by a hand, revealing only pallid skin. Coupled with the desperate cries of a woman, he harbored no further doubts. The man gradually opened the door, but as it creaked ajar, a ghostly arm seized the doorframe, causing his heart to leap in sudden alarm. An overwhelming sense of unease and dread surging within him. The fingertips of that arm were sharp, still stained with dried blood. Xiaofeng cast aside his phone and forcefully yanked the security door wide open. The man was overtaken by panic, though it was a woman calling for help. How could a zombie suddenly materialize? A voice modulator? The man was gripped by terror and began to spiral into irrational thoughts, forgetting to flee. At that moment, Xiaofeng lunged at him. The strength he possessed, surpassing that of an adult, rendered the man utterly defenseless. Ding! The host has successfully infected 1 individual, earning 10 evolution points. Xiaofeng slowly rose, gazing at the fallen man, devoid of any remorse. The zombie virus was transforming him. If he did not evolve swiftly, he would be the one to perish. From the instant he became a zombie, everything had irrevocably changed. This was not a moral battle, but a struggle for survival. There was no right or wrong, only life and death. Xiaofeng stepped over the man and continued deeper into the room, only to be met with disappointment. The man too lived alone. Exiting the room, he exerted considerable effort to retrieve his phone, and to his astonishment, it was still functional. A counterfeit device, yet remarkably resilient. Xiaofeng began his ascent in the elevator, continuing his journey of evolution. The building he inhabited boasted 24 stories, with 4 households per floor, among the hundreds of residents. There must be survivors. Tonight, he had to evolve to the 2nd tier. He chose not to commence from the ground floor, but rather from the top, as the survival rate on the uppermost floor was generally higher, considering ordinary zombies would not take the elevator. That night, within this building, bizarre occurrences unfolded. A zombie relentlessly pounded on doors, accompanied by a recording played from a phone. The blood-red sunlight filtering through the window cast an eerie glow upon its visage, amplifying its malevolence. As time crept by, though the sky remained unchanged, the phone still displayed the precise hour, 0642. The deep night had passed, dawn had arrived. Yet unlike before, the bustling morning commuters were absent, replaced only by the tireless undead wandering aimlessly. Throughout the night, Xiaofeng had infused this building with unending terror. As a single zombie continued to knock upon doors, broadcasting its eerie recording in search of survivors. Ding! The host has successfully infected 1 individual, earning 10 evolution points. Current evolution value, 100,100. The host begins the evolution process. Evolution complete. Current tier, 2nd tier, ordinary zombie. The host's strength has doubled, speed slightly enhanced. and both vision and hearing have received minor improvements, alongside increased agility. Ding. The host has been detected to have advanced to the second tier, and the task system has officially commenced. The tasks are autonomously generated and have been completed. Please check them at your convenience. Li Xiaofeng stood in a daze, feeling a mysterious power coursing through his once rigid body, dissipating in a brief moment. Yet, he distinctly sensed an enhancement in his strength and agility, most notably. He could now walk with a semblance of normalcy. Although his movements remained somewhat peculiar, they set him apart from ordinary zombies. Should he be seen by others, they might merely presume he had a leg ailment, perhaps encouraging him to take a few more steps. He attempted to bend his fingers slightly. While he still could not form a fist, he was able to curl them to a moderate degree, and he felt significantly empowered. Pondering the system's earlier notification about the activation of the task system, he delved into his mind. Indeed, aside from his host information, a new task option had appeared within the system interface. Ding. The system tasks are divided into weekly tasks and random tasks. Weekly tasks are issued every week based on the host's strength, offering substantial rewards but posing greater challenges. Random tasks are automatically triggered by the system according to the host's environment, with rewards and difficulties varying unpredictably. Chapter 8. The Grotesque Zombie Weekly Task. Restoration of Dignity. Exterminate a first-tier mutated beast. Description. In this apocalyptic world, as a zombie, you appear to have become a ruler, with all humans fearing your virus. Yet, every creature has its nemesis. A seemingly insignificant mutated beast might easily snap your neck. Zombie youth, go forth. Restore dignity to your undead kin. Difficulty, 2 stars. Task duration, within 7 days. Reward, randomly enhance a specific physical capability. Random task, none. Li Xiaofeng stood still, gazing through the window at the blood-red sun in the sky, enveloped in a gentle melancholy. Restore dignity? To what end? That enormous yellow dog, monstrous in appearance, could likely split my head with a single blow. This task seems unreliable. It would be far wiser to infect humans, garner evolution points, and enhance my abilities in a more straightforward manner. After incessantly banging on the door all night, Li Xiaofeng felt a slight swelling on his forehead. Though devoid of any pain, it was not a hindrance. Despite the arrival of daylight, the outside world showed no signs of change. With a faint red glow still permeating the floors, Li Xiaofeng continued his relentless knocking, albeit slowly, and with remarkable patience. He had only reached the 14th floor by morning. Having infected 7 survivors in total, he had barely met the basic objective, recognizing that the path of evolution remained long, and he needed to strive harder. However, upon reaching the 11th floor, he conceded. Not only did no one answer his knocks, but his phone had also run out of battery, which he casually pocketed. He began contemplating his next course of action. Everyone had firmly shut their doors, rendering entry impossible for one bearing the identity of a zombie. One could only wait for them to emerge of their own accord. The apocalypse had erupted with such ferocity that most residents could hardly stockpile provisions, inevitably succumbing within a few days, as the looming threat of death would compel them to venture forth. Though his speed had been enhanced once, it still paled in comparison to that of an ordinary human. I must find a place to lie in wait, anticipating their arrival. Li Xiaofeng returned to his home, casually retrieving a clothes-drying rod before descending to the ground floor via the elevator. The floor was strewn with chaotic bloodstains, indicating that a struggle had undoubtedly transpired. He positioned the drying rod at the elevator entrance, ensuring the doors could not close, thereby forcing any other residents seeking to descend to utilize the staircase, a necessary passage. He observed several zombies lingering on the first floor, akin to beasts in search of prey. Raising his hands, he shoved them all out. Though devoid of reason, the zombies emitted several guttural growls. "Why are you howling so loudly?" Li Xiaofeng retorted, unwilling to be outdone, and promptly responded with his own roar. After some time, the zombies had vacated the building, allowing Li Xiaofeng to close the entrance door. Should any human descend in search of sustenance, they would not flee due to the absence of these few zombies. He quietly maneuvered to the rear of the secure staircase, pressing against it, the shadows concealing his form. Without a careful inspection, one would remain oblivious to the presence of such a furtive zombie. When individuals eventually let down their guard and turned their backs to him, he would slowly emerge, at which point he could delight in the thought of their impending doom. Li Xiaofeng could not suppress a sinister chuckle, though it manifested only as a few raspy growls, adding an air of terror. Time trickled by. It was an exceedingly tedious wait, one that would unnerve most individuals before long. However, the zombie virus had instilled in Li Xiaofeng an extraordinary patience, reminiscent of a predatory beast. Fully attuned to his sense of smell, no whiff of fresh flesh could elude his nostrils. This was the most effective method to acquire evolution points. As his speed remained excruciatingly slow, It was akin to pitting a septuagenarian against a young adult in a race, an exercise in torment. Li Xiaofeng had contemplated lying in wait at the supermarket, yet the density of zombies there rendered it a fiercely competitive arena. Furthermore, in times of peace, the humans capable of safely reaching the community supermarket were undoubtedly the true elite. Such individuals might not appear for an entire week. After all, the community was now rife with wandering zombies, while this building boasted but a few, surely allowing a significant number of survivors to successfully reach the ground floor. The second day of the apocalypse passed swiftly, yielding no results, yet this was as Li Xiaofeng had anticipated. The food within most residents' refrigerators was ample enough to sustain them for 2 days. More importantly, should a person refrain from sustenance for 2 days, there exists no imminent threat to life. Venturing out in search of food, however, undoubtedly poses a perilous risk. The discerning human mind can easily differentiate between the two. Yet, they seem to forget that in a state of hunger, with the body weakened, the risks associated with foraging for food multiply exponentially. Perhaps it is not mere forgetfulness, but a deliberate oversight, for many adopt a mentality of seizing each day as it comes. Chapter 9. An arrival. The third day of the apocalypse dawned swiftly. Li Xiaofeng remained steadfastly leaning against the secure stairwell, motionless for an entire day, feeling not the slightest discomfort. This, too, is one of the advantages of the undead. Listening to the unending cacophony of growls outside brought him an inexplicable sense of tranquility. It seemed he had fully embraced his role among the zombies. Suddenly, a slow and measured cadence of footsteps echoed, though Li Xiaofeng's hearing had significantly diminished, making it difficult to discern. The sounds were merely figments of his imagination. He caught the scent of fresh flesh drawing nearer, and it was approaching him with increasing proximity. At last, someone had arrived. A flicker of excitement coursed through Li Xiaofeng's mind. The prolonged wait had not been in vain. As he had anticipated, no one descended in the elevator. Although an encounter was possible, the element of surprise would be lost. Fearing the grim fate of being discovered, Li Xiaofeng, with his acute sense of smell, discerned that there were 3 individuals descending. Finally, he could hear their footsteps clearly as they reached the second floor. The trio moved cautiously, their vigilance palpable, for this matter pertained to their very survival. The 2 flights of stairs, comprising nearly 20 steps, took them a full 3 minutes to descend, their pace measured and deliberate. Yet, Li Xiaofeng exhibited greater patience, remaining utterly still, pressed against the stairwell, cloaked in shadow. Upon reaching the ground floor, the 3 scanned their surroundings, ensuring no zombies lingered, and sighed in relief as they began to approach the exit, preparing to burst forth. Unbeknownst to them, a zombie stealthily trailed behind, moving soundlessly, and were they to catch sight of it, they would surely be paralyzed with fear. All 3 wielded weapons. The foremost individual brandished a strength rod, which, if hurled with vigor, could swiftly snap a zombie's fragile neck. The second person held a frying pan, ready to deliver a crushing blow to any approaching undead. The last individual wielded a gleaming kitchen knife, its blade evidently sharpened before their departure. How curious it was that someone still possessed a whetstone at home. Even more astonishing to Li Xiaofeng was the sight of the 3 clad in leather jackets, reminiscent of characters from the Matrix. Yet, it was September, and one had to admire their resilience to endure such attire. Nonetheless, this clothing did afford a measure of protection. The zombies' claws were sharp, and even without bites, a puncture through flesh posed a risk of infection. Li Xiaofeng approached slowly, his heart trembling at the scent of blood and flesh emanating from the trio. Gazing at the vulnerable throat before him, he suddenly sank his sharp fangs into it, tearing flesh in an instant as the terrifying zombie virus coursed into the victim's body. "Ah, help! Save me!" the man cried out in agony, taken aback by the excruciating pain. The 2 others in front, stricken with fear, quickly reacted. "Damn it! What kind of monster is this?" one of them exclaimed, panic surging within as he realized a zombie lurked behind them. As the last man succumbed to the pain, collapsing to the ground while desperately clutching his wound, Li Xiaofeng opened his mouth wide, hands raised, and lunged at the man in the center. Although filled with dread, the man managed to muster a fierce resistance, swinging a frying pan directly at the zombie's head. Li Xiaofeng felt his neck twist at an unnatural angle, disorienting him despite the absence of pain. What the hell? With his neck askew, Li Xiaofeng lunged at the man again, locking him in a tight grip. Striving to turn his head back, a faint crack echoed as he finally aligned his neck, opening his mouth wide, and with a fierce bite, he plunged into the man's flesh, eliciting a spray of blood that filled him with an indescribable exhilaration. The last remaining individual, overwhelmed by terror, discarded the frying pan and bolted out through the building's door. "Brave soul, I shall let you go," Li Xiaofeng thought, realizing he could not pursue, and lamented the courage of his fleeing adversary as he ventured unarmed into the community, where dangers lurked far greater than within the building. Ding. The host has successfully infected one individual, gaining 10 evolution points. Ding. The host has successfully infected another individual, gaining an additional 10 evolution points. Li Xiaofeng's evolution value surged to 20200, yet the cost for upgrading had increased. Would the next requirement be 300 or perhaps 400? This implied he would need to infect dozens more to advance. The road ahead remained arduous. Chapter 10. Frenzied Infection Roar. Just as Li Xiaofeng pondered, the two infected zombies began to rise slowly, the virus having wholly transformed them. Get out and find more monsters. He forcefully pushed the two zombies out the building door. Returning to his previous position, preparing for the next hunt. On the third day of the apocalypse, no one dared to descend, seemingly able to withstand hunger for now. However, the coming days would herald Li Xiaofeng's harvest. Weak humans would inevitably risk everything. But how could they contend with Li Xiaofeng, stripped of their strength? The young man who had discarded the frying pan had indeed not returned. On the fourth day, some began daring to venture downstairs once more. Li Xiaofeng remained utterly still. Like the most cunning of hunters, biding his time for prey to unwittingly fall into the trap he had meticulously devised. Unexpectedly, a middle-aged man descended the stairs, wielding an iron rod in his hand. Despite his usual high status, he was filled with trepidation, his hands trembling slightly. It seemed that the iron rod lent him a semblance of courage as he cautiously approached the ground floor, his eyes wide with fear, scanning his surroundings. Upon realizing there were no zombies in sight, he released a sigh of relief. However, the bloodstains on the floor jolted him. They were remnants of the two individuals infected by Li Xiaofeng the previous day, their blood having splattered onto the staircase. Gripping the iron rod tightly, the middle-aged man advanced to the first floor, drawing nearer to the building's exit in search of sustenance. Suddenly, he felt a chill breeze caress his neck. Just as he turned to investigate, an excruciating pain struck him fiercely. He spun around, swinging the iron rod with force towards Li Xiaofeng's head. Bang! The two collided. But Li Xiaofeng paid no heed, lunging forward and seizing the middle-aged man firmly. Due to the infection of the zombie virus, the middle-aged man's vision began to blur, and he gradually lost consciousness, collapsing to the ground. Minutes later, a new zombie rose once more, once again pushed forth by Li Xiaofeng. The virulence of the zombie virus was terrifying. If humanity did not act swiftly, this planet would soon become a haven for the undead. Li Xiaofeng returned to his previous position, resuming his hunting endeavors, an endless cycle. Over the next 3 days, the number of survivors attempting to venture out for food increased dramatically, even forming into groups. This not only bolstered their courage, but, more importantly, in the event of a zombie encounter, they needed only to outrun their companions rather than the zombies themselves. A throng of famished individuals embarked on a perilous journey. A rabble easily intimidated by Li Xiaofeng's dominating presence. Some, lacking stamina, fainted almost instantly. Upon awakening, they found themselves transformed into zombies. Li Xiaofeng's evolution value surged wildly. He had already infected dozens, and the subsequent advancement granted him a slight enhancement in physical prowess. Li Xiaofeng's status had evolved into the following. Host, Li Xiaofeng rank. Tier 3 Ordinary Zombie Evolution Value. 150, 300 Talent. Catastrophic Nerve, Viral Infection. Bloody Evolution Skills. None Evaluation. An unremarkable evolved minor zombie, with a potential parity against an average adult male, provided one can keep pace with them. Now, his movements were no longer awkward. If not for his ghastly visage, one might mistake him for a young programmer from a mere glance at his silhouette. His running speed had also increased, and he felt confident he could compete in a senior citizens race, with aspirations of at least securing a silver medal. Do not inquire. This confidence is innate. His body's agility had similarly improved, rendering simple actions, such as bowing and bending, remarkably fluid, alleviating any concerns of potential organ detachment. The strength has multiplied, and he has become a veritable giant among humans. An ordinary adult would find it exceedingly difficult to triumph in a confrontation with him. At this moment, Li Xiaofeng has truly transcended the fundamental crisis of survival, having grown immensely stronger compared to when he first transformed into a zombie. With his hands on his hips, he gazes up at the sky, a faint sense of melancholy for the powerful enveloping him. Indeed, it is a lonely existence at such heights. A sudden zombie roar interrupts his thoughts as a wandering zombie inadvertently collides with him, causing Li Xiaofeng to stagger and nearly lose his balance. Damn it, you've disrupted my moment of reflection on the undead life. It seems the time has come to depart from this building and seek broader horizons. Li Xiaofeng muses, noting that few venture outside nowadays. He has infected dozens, accounting for roughly 1/10 of this building's inhabitants, coupled with those who have failed to return home safely or do not reside here permanently. His meticulous calculations suggest that the infection rate of the virus hovers around 80 to 90%. with a population of billions on this planet. That translates to a staggering 8 to 9 billion zombies. A truly terrifying figure. Chapter 11. The attire of the strong upon returning home. Li Xiaofeng prepares to gather his belongings and leave this building, embarking on his journey of evolution. His agility has undergone significant enhancement, allowing him to wield ordinary weapons for self-defense. An hour later, a zombie with blood-red eyes, a pale visage, and slightly parted lips, revealing congealed black blood, stands beneath a building, gazing into the distance. This zombie carries an unusual weapon, a 1-meter-long iron rod with a frying pan affixed to its top by duct tape. A pink curtain, torn from who knows where, is tied around its neck, billowing slightly in the breeze, resembling a cape. With its hands tucked into its pockets, the zombie begins to swagger through the community, as though patrolling its territory. As Li Xiaofeng meanders about, his mind races with thoughts of how to infect more individuals. Help! Help! A faint cry for help reaches his ears. Enhanced hearing allows Li Xiaofeng to discern that it emanates from the community supermarket. The community is modest, comprising only 5 buildings, and not far from the exit lies a small supermarket. In ordinary times, it was a favored spot for residents, and in this apocalyptic era, it has become even more sought after, though conditions have become precarious. A group of young people, daring to risk their lives, has ventured to the supermarket. Fortune favors them, as they encounter no zombies along the way. However, upon packing various food items and preparing to leave, they are confronted by 2 wandering zombies. The scent of fresh blood and flesh immediately entices the creatures. The supermarket entrance is not spacious, and the 2 zombies conjoin to block the exit, leaving the group with no means of escape. Even with a sliver of space remaining, they dare not attempt to pass through at such a short distance. A zombie's claw could swiftly seal their fate. Li Xiaofeng was equally filled with exhilaration, letting out enthusiastic shouts as he glided forward with graceful strides, his arms swaying rhythmically. The gentle breeze lifted his pink cloak, billowing elegantly behind him. To run freely with the wind is to pursue the power of thunder and lightning. Observing that the crowd had been cornered deep within the supermarket by 2 zombies, obscured by shelves, they remained oblivious to his arrival. A clever idea struck him. He swiftly turned his body and began to move into the supermarket with a peculiar, stilted gait reminiscent of an astronaut. His speed surpassed that of ordinary zombies, allowing him to quickly overtake one of them. With a determined push of his hands, he sent the creature crashing to the ground, a feat that would require a moment to accomplish. The 3 university students inside the supermarket gaped at the sudden appearance of this odd figure. Draped in a pink curtain and carrying a black frying pan, he moved with an eccentric gait, his sparse hair turned away from them. Yet, this bizarre individual had the audacity to topple a zombie with remarkable bravery. In that instant, the 3 were filled with emotion, having felt despair. They now sensed the arrival of a savior. Though his fashion sense resembled that of a madman, who could possibly care? A warrior, a gallant hero. Save us! The 3 students cried out. Unbeknownst to them, Li Xiaofeng, still turned away, inclined his head slightly, continuing to approach them with his flamboyant strides. Tears shimmered in the eyes of the trio, recognizing him as their true savior. At last, the 2 parties drew closer. Their eyes trembled as they grasped the pink curtain of their benefactor, akin to clutching a lifeline. Benefactor, we are moved. Whoa, cried one bespectacled student, tears cascading down his cheeks, witnessing genuine emotion amidst the apocalypse. Benefactor, me too, another student echoed, but upon catching sight of Li Xiaofeng's turned face, he suddenly screamed in horror. Li Xiaofeng lunged forward and bit down ferociously, instantly infecting the student with the zombie virus. Dare you move? I, Li, the zombie, am here. Who dares to stir? The other 2 students stood frozen, utterly astonished that their supposed savior was, in fact, a zombie. Moreover, such a bizarre zombie. Good heavens! Has evolution reached such an extent? Ding! Host successfully infected 1 individual, earning 10 evolution points. In the blink of an eye, another 30 evolution points were added to his tally. How delightful! Li Xiaofeng pushed the 5 zombies within the supermarket outside, sending them off to wander elsewhere. As he prepared to resume his patient ambush, this supermarket, frequented by survivors from 5 buildings, would surely attract many fortunate souls who might safely arrive. As they transported food, he would stealthily approach, and in due time, they would encounter the true zombie overlord. With this thought, Li Xiaofeng tightened the pink curtain around his neck, pressing himself against the shelves. The dim lighting rendered him nearly invisible. Without careful scrutiny, one would hardly notice his presence. Chapter 12. The mutant beast. The day passed swiftly, and Li Xiaofeng did not encounter any survivors. However, the following day, he was suddenly awakened by the incessant growls of zombies echoing in the air. What on earth is happening? The zombies seemed to be in peril. Li Xiaofeng approached the entrance of the supermarket, eager to discern the unfolding events. A young girl donned in a white dress, her complexion a ghastly yellow, gradually approached the supermarket. It was evident that she had endured days of hunger and was compelled to venture out in search of sustenance. A throng of wandering zombies extended their arms towards her, their intentions malevolent. There was a flicker of terror in the girl's eyes, yet she was unharmed. Beside her stood a large white dog, its fur as pristine as snow, measuring over 2 meters in length. With a powerful swipe of its paw, it dispatched one of the zombies with ease. In a mere moment, 4 zombies lay lifeless on the ground, their heads severed, rendering them incapable of rising again. Good heavens! Xiaofeng realized that with his speed, he could not possibly evade that formidable white dog. With a graceful turn, he retreated back into the supermarket. Venturing deeper within, he effortlessly reclined. A pink cloak draped over him, as a corpse abruptly materialized beside him. The girl, relieved, patted her chest, astonished that she had safely arrived here. Thank you, Dubai. She affectionately stroked the large white dog's head. After a moment of observation outside, she discerned that the supermarket was devoid of zombies, save for a single corpse sprawled on the floor. Presumably, it was another survivor who had ventured out in search of food, but his weapon was indeed peculiar, featuring a frying pan affixed to it. Paying it no mind, she began to scavenge for provisions, chocolate, compressed biscuits, bread. As she gazed upon these precious items, a smile blossomed on her face. Suddenly, a startled gasp escaped her lips as her exposed ankle was grazed, akin to a bee sting. Xiaofeng, exuding a sense of smugness, reveled in the cleverness of the zombies. In a fleeting moment as the girl passed by, he had stretched out his arm, his fingertips swiftly inflicting a cut upon her smooth ankle. The girl, noticing the small abrasion on her foot, mistakenly believed she had merely bumped into something and continued her search for food, unperturbed. Abruptly, her vision began to blur and her body faltered, causing her to collide with a shelf. Grr! The large white dog, sensing something amiss with its master, rushed inside, only to find her sprawled on the ground, pacing anxiously. Its intelligence struggled to comprehend the situation. It merely wagged its tail, circling around its owner. The girl soon began to rise, but she was no longer human. She had transformed into a living, breathing zombie. The scent of the mutant beast's flesh swiftly captivated her, and with a pallid visage, she extended her arms and lunged forward. The loyal white dog stood frozen in place, unable to fathom why its beloved owner had suddenly turned hostile. Yet, the faithful creature refrained from attacking, instead emitting cries in a desperate attempt to awaken her. Yet, the zombie possesses no recollection of its former self. The fresh flesh of the mutated beast beckons her with an indescribable allure. In a brief span, the large white dog's body became stained crimson with blood, while the girl relentlessly gnawed at its form, unaware of her fatigue. The dog's eyes began to glaze over as it lost a copious amount of blood. No matter how formidable a creature may be, it cannot withstand such loss. Its massive frame collapsed with a thud, gazing at its master with tearful eyes. As gentle and docile as ever, it had relinquished its will to resist, quietly awaiting death. Suddenly, in its line of sight, a corpse beneath the pink curtain began to rise. The corpse approached, delivering a swift kick that sent the girl zombie flying, and began to gnaw at the dog. It was none other than Xiaofeng, who had been feigning death. The scene before him stirred profound emotions within him, prompting him to rise decisively. The dignity of the zombie clan shall be safeguarded by me, the zombie overlord. The spark of life in the dog's eyes gradually faded as it closed them, succumbing to eternal slumber. Truly, dogs are humanity's best friends. Had he raised one before the apocalypse, he might have had a steed by now. Xiaofeng continued to gnaw without fatigue, now understanding why zombies exhibit a tendency to attack mutated beasts. Within them resided a superior strain of the zombie virus. An exhilarating sensation coursed through his soul, surpassing that of infecting humans. Chapter 13, New Weekly Task Ding. The host is consuming the flesh and blood of a first-tier mutated beast, evolution value 10. Ding. The host is consuming the flesh and blood of a first-tier mutated beast. Evolution value 10. Ding. The host has completed the weekly task, restoring dignity. Extermination of a first-tier mutated beast. Rewards are being dispensed and randomly selected. Reward locked. The host's agility has been significantly enhanced. A new weekly task will be announced tomorrow. Please check promptly. Ding. The host's evolution value has reached 300,300. Meeting the advancement criteria, the host begins to evolve. The host's evolution is complete. Current tier, 4th tier, ordinary zombie. The host's strength has doubled, speed has slightly increased, and both vision and hearing have been mildly enhanced. Agility has been improved. A series of electronic notifications echoed in Xiaofeng's mind, leaving him momentarily stunned. He had not anticipated that slaying a mutated beast would yield such bountiful rewards. A mysterious power surged within him, and he felt genuinely empowered, particularly in terms of agility. The enhancements from the evolution and weekly task rewards made his joints come alive. Snap! He raised his right hand and, to his surprise, snapped his fingers. In his mind, his evolution value had now reached 50,400. A single mutated beast had granted him 200 evolution points, equivalent to infecting 20 humans. No wonder zombies instinctively attack mutated beasts. Yet, why did he not feel that thrill upon seeing the mutated beast? Ding! Due to the host's inherent frailty, in order to prevent foolish actions such as seeking death, the instinct of the zombie virus has been suppressed. The system surprisingly offers insights, truly a testament to its humanity. But what does seeking death even mean? Did he not witness the elegance and swiftness with which he fled upon encountering the golden-haired creature for the first time? Xiaofeng tied a pink bow around his neck, feeling a sudden surge of refinement. A great demon king must embody the essence of a great demon king. He hastily expelled the young female zombie and dragged the corpse of the great white dog deeper into the supermarket, concerned it might frighten the survivors. This time, he thoroughly savored the sweetness of success, unexpectedly completing the weekly task at a crucial moment. Fortune favors the bold. Come forth and submit to me, the zombie demon king. Xiaofeng howled at the entrance of the supermarket, dramatically pivoting, his right hand gracefully gesturing with the pink cloak, returning stylishly into the shadows of the supermarket. Commencing the next round of waiting. This day swiftly passed, and no survivors approached. It seemed that the capable and fortunate humans were but a rare few. When Xiaofeng's gaze fell upon the supermarket's clock, it was already noon. Ding! A new round of weekly tasks has been released by the system. Please review. Weekly task, Divine Descent Talent, acquire a talent. Task overview. The advent of the apocalypse has stained humanity's future with blood, yet every circumstance harbors a glimmer of hope. 7 days after the apocalypse, the sky began to shower countless beams of colorful light. Anyone who acquires a beam will obtain a random talent, marking a turning point for humanity. Yet, zombies too are eligible to receive this. Difficulty, 2 stars. Task duration, within 7 days. Reward. The talent you acquire will directly elevate 1 tier. Xiaofeng was astonished that such an opportunity would arise after 7 days, indicating that humanity too was beginning to find a chance for revival. It appears he must hasten his evolution. Only by becoming a true zombie boss would he have the right to stand firm in this chaotic world. Chapter 14. The Mutation of Zombies. Roar. 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 At that moment, the outside world was filled with the resounding cries of zombies, their voices seemingly enveloping the entire city, bringing forth deeper despair. All zombies emitted their distinctive roars, and Xiaofeng slowly approached the supermarket entrance to observe the unfolding events. Am I being somewhat out of sync by not joining in? Watching the zombies outside howling to the heavens, he too began to vocalize. But then, something astonishing occurred. The ever-present blood sun in the sky radiated a powerful glow, illuminating every single zombie beneath it. It appeared as though the zombies were absorbing the crimson light. This phenomenon persisted for 10 minutes before the blood sun's glow dissipated. Xiaofeng also received the red light, yet he perceived no discernible change. As usual, these zombies were merely making noise. Indeed, they are devoid of intellect. Xiaofeng felt a fleeting sense of superiority, yet he was soon struck by an astonishing revelation. After the zombies ceased their howling, their bodies appeared to exhibit newfound agility, reminiscent of his own ascension to the 2nd tier. Had all the zombies undergone an evolution? This blood sun possessed such formidable abilities. It was not merely a singular zombie that had advanced, but billions across the planet. Yet, why did he feel nothing? System. Ding. The blood sun could provide energy to the system, which had already absorbed it. How remarkably candid. Xiaofeng smirked slightly, taken aback by the system's straightforward admission. No wonder he felt nothing. However, with the system at his disposal, his progression would far surpass that of ordinary zombies. Outside, hordes of 2nd-tier zombies roamed. While he had already transcended to the 4th tier, a sudden chill coursed through Xiaofeng. Truly, it is lonely at the top. The cacophony of countless zombies roused the survivors in the high-rise buildings, all trembling in despair. Some gazed out the windows, witnessing the formidable strength of the zombies, their wails echoing with a sorrow that could drive many to madness. Xiaofeng returned to the supermarket, preparing to wait for the final 12 hours until the sky unveiled its resplendent hues, at which point he would pursue his talents. This week's regular task was not to challenge mutated beasts, posing little danger to him. While the outside world was a perilous realm for humanity, it was an unimpeded path for him. Time slowly passed, reaching 6 o'clock in the morning. Following the evolution of the zombies from the previous night, it seemed no survivor dared to venture out. Yet in the final 2 hours, a cautious trio made their way to the supermarket, 2 young men and a woman. stealthily navigating their way without encountering any other zombies. One man, haggard yet brimming with excitement, exclaimed, "Through my meticulous calculations and analyses, I managed to cleverly avoid all the zombies. Trust me, it's foolproof." The other two, however, paid him no heed, their eyes gleaming with hunger as they beheld the scattered food within the supermarket, akin to ravenous wolves. They tore open a bag of chips and began to devour it voraciously, frantically stuffing food into their backpacks. It was only in this apocalypse that the true value of sustenance became apparent. The man, too, commenced gathering food from the periphery, while the woman delved deep into the supermarket's recesses, collecting provisions. As Li Xiaofeng observed the approaching humans, a surge of excitement coursed through him, invigorating every cell in his body. This sensation was more intense than ever before. The evolution of the zombie virus had transformed him profoundly. The dim lighting in this place rendered the red glow of the blood sun barely perceptible, yet the woman continued her frenzied gathering of food, utterly oblivious to her surroundings. The allure of food had stripped her of her sanity. Chapter 15. The Descent of Divine Talent. Bang. The woman seemed to have collided with someone. Her heart filled with confusion. She glanced over and caught sight of a flash of pink fluttering in the darkness, accompanied by a pair of cold, crimson eyes. This eerie scene made her heart skip a beat. Her mouth agape, she let out a terrified scream. Li Xiaofeng, with a flick of his pink cloak, enveloped her, his right hand swiftly grasping her neck, pulling her into his embrace, and then he leaned in closer. Outside the supermarket, two men immediately noticed the woman scream. During such times, everyone's nerves were exceptionally taut. Cautiously, they approached the entrance, one of them wielding a phone, activating its flashlight to illuminate the depths of the supermarket. To their shock, they discovered a balding man shrouded in a pink cloak, violating the woman. "Let her go. I will rescue her." The two men, witnessing the assault, felt their anger surge. Humanity was already struggling, and the presence of such scum was intolerable. Moreover, the individual's grotesque attire was utterly insufferable. They charged forward, each armed with a wooden stick, aiming for the rogue's head. But unexpectedly, the assailant raised his head, his crimson eyes and bloodied mouth letting out a roar towards them. My God! The two men felt as if their brains had frozen. They had not anticipated encountering a zombie in the midst of the assault. One stood frozen in place, utterly forgetting to flee, staring blankly as the zombie lunged at him, captured by Li Xiaofeng and bitten. "You're interrupting." The other, quick to react, executed a graceful turn, grabbed his backpack, and stumbled out of the supermarket, completely terrified. "You disturb my enjoyment." Li Xiaofeng, knowing he could not pursue, let out a roar and ceased his efforts. After another evolution, even the physically adept young man could no longer match his speed. Yet, the escaping man moved with agility, his well-defined muscles allowing him to execute a turn that felt almost comparable to Li Xiaofeng himself, unmistakably extraordinary. Ding. Host has successfully infected one individual, evolution value 10. Ding. Host has successfully infected one individual, evolution value 10. Li Xiaofeng's evolution value reached 70 for 100, with a considerable distance remaining to the next tier. He began another round of waiting, yet no survivors appeared. Bored, he retrieved his phone and found a usable charger, eager to replenish its battery. Unfortunately, to his dismay, it was completely dead. Rising, he took a phone from the recently infected female zombie's backpack, only to discover that the signal had been entirely cut off. Has the communication system collapsed as well? Stepping outside the supermarket, Li Xiaofeng casually lit a cigarette, its smoke curling as he gazed into the distance. The blood-red sunlight casting its glow upon him, once again sinking into a philosophical reverie. He recalled the days of his youth, running beneath the setting sun. Alas, time had now reached noon. Suddenly, a myriad of colorful rays began to emerge on the horizon, casting a dreamlike charm amid this despairing apocalyptic scene. The vibrant hues spread across the globe like countless shooting stars, prompting some to make wishes, praying for the swift end of this doomsday. Li Xiaofeng rose abruptly, expelling the smoke from his mouth, gazing into the distance in search of the nearest colorful light. Regrettably, his vision remained blurred, far from what it once was. He felt an urgent need to procure a pair of glasses. Chapter 16. The peculiar zombies. Li Xiaofeng strode out of the community, intent on locating the position of the nearest colorful rays. The once bustling streets were devoid of life, overrun only by wandering zombies. Dried blood stained the ground, and the air was stifling and oppressive. Amidst the horde of corpses, he walked with an air of nonchalance, his unconventional attire making him stand out distinctly. Should a regular human catch sight of him, they might mistake him for a fellow human, albeit one with a few screws loose. As he ventured onto the street, he spotted a clothing store not far ahead, and felt compelled to spruce himself up. One must not underestimate the significance of talent. Perhaps a touch of luck would bestow upon him a divine gift. Upon entering the store, he encountered several zombies, former employees, still aimlessly wandering about. Roar! He bellowed. But the zombies remained unperturbed. What kind of service is this? Moments later, he exited the clothing store clad in a striking red down jacket, with a hood snugly covering his head. He also snatched a pair of sunglasses from the adjacent store, placing them upon his face. However, remnants of blood still lingered on his lips, revealing his true identity as a zombie. With no suitable mask at hand, he hastily fashioned a black plastic bag from the ground, securing it over his mouth. He donned a pair of white gloves, typically used for heavy labor. Now, Xiaofeng had completely distinguished himself from the zombies, presenting an appearance of an extraordinary human. The large white dog had warned him that danger still lurked among the zombies in this apocalyptic world. If the mutated beasts remained docile and obedient to their masters, they could easily roam freely in this new reality. He certainly did not wish to traverse the streets only to be ambushed by an unexpected feline or canine monster. Gentle mutated beasts generally obeyed their masters, and given that the apocalypse had only just begun, it was likely that few would resort to indiscriminate killing. Thus, his human-like guise would afford him a measure of safety. The descent of his divine talent was slow, based on current observations. It would take at least another half an hour to fully dissipate. Xiaofeng was in no rush. After estimating the direction of the divine talent's descent, he deduced it was likely to the east of the city. With a leisurely stride, he proceeded forward, his nose twitching slightly as he sought out any survivors. The path of evolution continues unabated. Suddenly, as he passed by an internet cafe, he was struck by the scent of fresh blood and flesh, mingled with a faint, unpleasant odor. This was a cafe he frequented. With remarkable agility, he entered the establishment, where a crimson glow suffused the air, illuminating the computers. Yet, there were no living souls in sight, only zombies. Some meandered aimlessly, while others remained slumped in their seats, seemingly unable to rise, still wearing their headphones. Likely infected while engrossed in their games. Perhaps their teammates were still berating them for being inactive. He slowly approached the restroom at the back of the cafe, where the door was firmly shut and securely locked from within. The scent of blood and flesh wafting from there indicated the presence of 2 survivors inside. He knocked on the door, but there was no response. However, even his dulled hearing could detect the faint sounds of fearful breathing emanating from within. He knocked again, unable to speak, resorting to this method to convey that help had arrived. Yet, the occupants remained unresponsive, clearly terrified from their harrowing experiences over the past few days. Xiaofeng began to contemplate alternative methods. Unable to speak and with knocking proving futile, he needed to find another means of communication. As he pondered, he suddenly noticed a gap at the bottom of the restroom door. Slipping a piece of paper through should be feasible. Yet, where could he find paper and a pen in this cafe, unless some student had come to copy homework on a weekend? Surely, no one would engage in such trivial pursuits, except for the pre-zombie Xiaofeng. He wandered about aimlessly, indeed finding no such dullard. He ascended to the 2nd floor, where he found no paper or pens either, but the restroom door was ajar, and there was no one inside. An idea struck him. He entered the 2nd floor restroom and tore down a few small advertisements from the wall. Stealthily, he made his way back to the 1st floor restroom, dropping the ads on the ground and using his foot to push them one by one underneath the door. Inside were 2 middle school students who had come to the cafe to surf the internet on a weekend. Their joyful weekend had been abruptly shattered by an unforeseen calamity. The apocalypse had erupted, and it had come so suddenly. Previously, they had fantasized about how they would save the world if such a scenario ever unfolded. Yet now, they trembled in fear. Fortunate to have brought some food with them when they fled to the restroom. Otherwise, they would not have survived to this moment. However, it was all in vain, merely prolonging their inevitable demise. Outside, the streets were teeming with wandering zombies, leaving no means of escape. They now realized that only the true protagonists could save the world, while they were merely ordinary individuals struggling to survive. Despair gradually enveloped them, and hunger had begun to blur their vision. Chigu, a gaunt middle school student, remarked, "I think I'm hallucinating. I even saw someone slipping in advertisements. Just moments ago, I heard someone knock on the door. Could it be that someone is truly arriving? What are you thinking? With so many zombies around, who would dare venture online? Yet, Chigu, it seems someone is indeed posting advertisements." As the two observed the stream of pamphlets emerging beneath the door, they unsteadily rose and approached. Home service, phone number. Staring at the content of the advertisements, they were momentarily taken aback. Wasn't this the very kind of thing plastered all over the restroom walls? Xiaowei, carry me. The restroom door features transparent glass, and I want to take a look outside. A flicker of hope surged within them, causing their bodies to tremble. Could it be that someone was truly coming to rescue them? Zombies wouldn't be slipping in advertisements, after all. The two swayed slightly, one student standing on the shoulders of the other. Though they were on the brink of starvation, the sudden spark of hope sent adrenaline coursing through their veins, revitalizing them. At last, one managed to press his face against the transparent glass, attempting to glimpse the world outside. Li Xiaofeng, having heard the commotion, was already aware of their actions. He had previously dispatched the wandering zombies on the first floor and now saw the two observing the outside world. He took a couple of steps back, allowing them a clearer view, and even waved amicably. The student was filled with excitement as he beheld a figure donning sunglasses, a black plastic bag tied around his mouth, clothed in a bright red down jacket and draped in a pink curtain. Despite the peculiar appearance, the friendly wave was enough to instill a profound sense of reassurance in him. Xiaowei, let me down. It truly is someone coming to rescue us. The student's face was alight with fervor, his eyes glistening with tears, a poignant contrast to the apathy typically witnessed in this post-apocalyptic world. To risk one's life to save a stranger embodies a heroism that the two could aspire to emulate for a lifetime. He shakily descended, nearly losing his balance. Creak. The door swung open, revealing two haggard students stepping out. Thank you, uncle. Thank you. Their faces radiated with exhilaration, their voices trembling. Li Xiaofeng's expression froze. Uncle? I was merely a newcomer to my senior year before becoming a zombie. How disrespectful. He approached slowly, kindly patting their heads. Instantly, they felt an inexplicable sense of safety and rushed into his embrace, bursting into tears. What audacity! To leap into the arms of a zombie. Li Xiaofeng returned their embrace, gently lifting the edge of his black plastic bag, just like in television dramas, where beauties reveal their veils. However, what Li Xiaofeng unveiled was a mouth stained with blood. Ah, it hurts. It hurts so much. The two individuals almost cried out in shock as a sudden, intense pain shot through their necks. They immediately pushed Li Xiaofeng away, their eyes wide with terror, only to discover that his lips were smeared with a substantial amount of blood. Why you? They clutched their neck wounds, their expressions filled with disbelief. In the midst of their horror, the zombie, astonishingly, donned a black plastic bag once more, casually flicked its head, and turned away with an air of nonchalance. What on earth is this thing? Chapter 18. The speedy green car. The two had no time to scream, as their vision abruptly blurred and their consciousness began to fade. Ding. The host successfully infected one person, evolution value 10. Li Xiaofeng suddenly flicked his pink cloak and departed with flair. With matters resolved, he slipped away, concealing his achievements and reputation. His eyes, concealed behind sunglasses, were cold and merciless, gazing into the distance as a gentle breeze swept by, evoking a sense of solitary elegance. Good grief, I got too caught up in posturing. He suddenly spotted a nearby cascade of colorful light that had fully descended. Don't let the humans get there first. He noticed a small green car beside him, and with immense strength, he swiftly removed the lock and elegantly hopped inside. Lowering his head slightly, his eyes focused intently, he maneuvered to avoid the zombies wandering ahead. The wind generated by his forward motion billowed his pink cloak. A handsome zombie was careening down the street with panache. Bang, bang, bang. His poor vision, combined with his abysmal driving skills and stiff joints, resulted in him colliding with zombies along the way. Had the zombies possessed awareness, they would have surely laid a beating on Li Xiaofeng by now. After 10 minutes of tumultuous riding, he finally arrived at his destination. Upon disembarking, he noticed that the front wheel of the small green car had bent at a right angle. He raised his gaze slightly and beheld the breathtaking, colorful light, which had landed just a short distance away, illuminating a 5-story building with an open rooftop. It seemed he would need to find an entrance to ascend. Li Xiaofeng began to wander around the vicinity and soon discovered a locked iron door on the left side of the building, presumably the entrance. Clang. It was locked. Goodness, judging by the sturdiness of this iron door, it seemed impossible to force it open. He quickly spotted several zombies near the building. 2 of them were seated on a stone bench, with a chessboard set between them. They appeared to be 2 elderly individuals, transformed into zombies, who had likely never risen from their seats due to their frail legs. From a distance, one might easily think they were still engaged in their game. Li Xiaofeng approached them and slyly rummaged through their pockets. Before long, he found a set of keys, which should unlock the iron door. He glanced at the chessboard and, without hesitation, moved one of the pieces to capture the other, thereby concluding this eternally unfinished chess match. The advisor is a traitor. You have lost. Li Xiaofeng swiftly turned, stealthily making his way to the iron door. As I began to experiment with the keys, a surge of exhilaration coursed through me. After numerous attempts, I finally discovered the correct key, which effortlessly unlocked the iron gate. Inside, the light was dim, and the motion sensor lights failed to illuminate the space. Li Xiaofeng gazed at the series of stairs ahead, feeling a twinge of frustration. This antiquated building lacked an elevator, necessitating a tedious ascent by foot. Each floor housed 2 families, with a total of 8 households. Yet 4 of the doors stood ajar. To his astonishment, he beheld the sight of zombies lying within. Their limbs were clearly broken, and they struggled incessantly, yet they could not rise. Had someone ventured inside? That was the only explanation. Nevertheless, Xiaofeng chose to ignore them and proceeded directly to the rooftop. Divine aptitude. Here I come. Upon reaching the top, he discovered that the door had been secured once more, locked from the inside without a keyhole. Were there others above? Would my abilities be taken from me? A wave of anxiety washed over Xiaofeng, but he soon heard voices. Song Di Wen Di. Although the nature of the vibrant light was unknown to him, he was willing to take risks. Xianggu, allow me to take the lead. I am young and fear no death. You must survive in this apocalyptic world. What are you two pretending for? Just approach and you'll receive a notification. Even the illiterate can comprehend. A random talent could enhance one's survival in this dystopia. Xiaofeng was momentarily taken aback. There were indeed 3 individuals on the rooftop, yet they were embroiled in an argument. It appeared the talent had yet to be absorbed. Chapter 19. The Ruthless One's Knock, Knock, Knock. A slow knocking reverberated through the air, leaving the 3 young men momentarily stunned. Is someone there? In this apocalypse? Who would dare approach? They were not residents of the building. They had merely come to the rooftop for a weekend barbecue, unaware that an unexpected turn of events would unfold. Fortunately, they had not mutated. However, upon witnessing the zombies roaming the streets, biting indiscriminately, they hastily secured the iron door. All 3 were formidable individuals. Their provisions quickly depleted, and they soon mustered the courage to descend in search of sustenance. To their surprise, the so-called zombies were nothing more than sluggish, stiff bodies. As long as they did not get tackled, survival was entirely feasible. The zombies on the lower floors were swiftly dispatched by the trio, who brought all the food back upstairs. Yet today, an iridescent light began to descend slowly. Initially thought to be a meteorite, they soon realized it bore no harmful effects. As they approached, they discovered it was a reward for a random talent. They fully embraced the notion, in a world turned upside down, what was truly impossible? The 3 brothers, typically bonded by camaraderie, found themselves at odds over a single talent. This was a chance for survival. No one would relinquish it. The knocking interrupted their quarrel. Who is it? A hulking man stood bare-chested. A faded dragon tattoo adorning his chest, his expression fierce and menacing. The incessant knocking on the door continued, rhythmic and urgent. The 3 men grew irritated, perplexed by the disturbance. Brother, something is being shoved in from below, exclaimed a young man, slender and bespectacled, resembling a monkey in stature. The imposing figure slowly approached, lowering his gaze. Home service? What the hell is this? Which scoundrel dares to mock me? He bellowed, swinging the iron door open. To their astonishment, a peculiarly dressed individual appeared at the threshold, leaving the 3 men momentarily bewildered. Clad in black sunglasses, a plastic bag, a vibrant pink curtain draped behind him, a striking red-down jacket, white gloves, and bizarrely, a frying pan strapped to his back, he exuded an air of madness. What on earth is this? A lunatic? Xiaofeng paid no heed to their astonished expressions as he stepped inside, his gaze drawn to the colorful orb in the corner, igniting a fervor within him. He turned, his crimson eyes coldly surveying the trio. How dare these mortals insult me? Just as Xiaofeng was about to unveil his true self and deliver a shocking revelation, the hulking man barked, "Brothers, grab your weapons. This one is likely a madman." The trio seized gleaming machetes and advanced toward him. Xiaofeng suddenly halted, a sense of foreboding washing over him. Are these 3 thugs? Something feels amiss in this narrative. Determined to eliminate the giant first, he prepared to lunge forward. Yet, the hulking figure swiftly drew his machete and lunged at Xiaofeng with astonishing speed, even faster than him. The sound of the blade piercing flesh momentarily stunned Xiaofeng. Although he had ascended to a 4th-tier ordinary zombie, facing an armed adversary left him at a disadvantage. A cunning plan took shape in his mind. He pressed his hand against his abdomen, feigning disbelief as he slowly collapsed. The giant withdrew his blade, spitting in contempt. What the hell? Acting like a lunatic. Wearing a ridiculous red-down jacket in this heat. Turning around, the faded dragon on his chest appeared even more menacing, its fury palpable as he addressed his companions. Brothers, it seems our safety is compromised. To survive, these talents must be our priority. Chapter 20. The crushing of intellect. You know my character. I will seize this talent. And there are plenty more to be found. I can lead you both to them. How does that sound? The hulking man pounded his chest, exuding confidence. Brother Xiang, I feel my combat prowess has intensified. Claiming this talent will bolster my confidence, asserted another similarly robust man, adorned with a tattoo of a sloth on his chest, which humorously complemented the tuft of hair atop his head. When I got my tattoo, I never cried out. Brother, your dragon remains incomplete out of fear of pain. Let me claim this talent. With that, The three men engaged in a heated dispute. Let the victor take the prize, then. A flicker of rage flashed in the eyes of the burly man. This was his humiliation, resurrected today. Today, this remnant dragon shall devour you, the plump lamb. Very well. But since we are brothers, let us engage in unarmed combat, without weapons. The man adorned with the tattoo of a lazy sheep discarded his cleaver, his gaze equally fierce. Excellent. Wendy, you need not involve yourself. Your physique is too frail. Regardless of who emerges victorious, both I and your brother Song shall ensure your well-being. The slender youth maintained an indifferent expression and stepped back, indicating his withdrawal from the impending clash. The elder brother, having cast aside his cleaver, advanced with bare fists, his muscular frame exuding an overwhelming presence. The second brother's eyes glimmered with intensity, his body unwavering as he watched the approach of the elder, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. Brother, do not hold it against me. Suddenly, he bent to retrieve the cleaver from the ground and lunged forward without a hint of restraint. The elder brother momentarily froze, but then smiled as he regarded his charging sibling, slowly uttering, "You mustn't blame me either." A cleaver abruptly pierced the abdomen of the second brother. Disbelief etched upon his face as he turned slowly. It was none other than the frail third brother, brandishing the cleaver, his expression menacing. "Wendy, you?" The burly man chuckled, offering a compliment. "Little Wendy, well done." Yet, before the words had fully escaped his lips, taking advantage of the elder brother's momentary disarmament, the third brother charged forward with the cleaver. "This talent is now mine," the slender youth declared fiercely. The burly man, caught off guard, swiftly evaded the initial strike, and they soon became entangled in a fierce struggle. Little Wendy, although slender, found himself at a disadvantage. The first strike bore no fruit, and he was quickly overpowered. "Damn it, how dare you betray me?" the burly man exclaimed, throwing little Wendy to the ground, his expression fierce as he rained down punches, seemingly intent on beating him to death. He could hardly fathom that the brothers he had once revered had turned against him. Suddenly, a loud crash resonated. The burly man felt a sharp pain at the back of his head, his vision blurring as he turned to see the source. Bang! As he turned around, a frying pan came crashing down upon him. It was the peculiar figure who had previously appeared incapacitated. "You bang!" Before the burly man could finish his sentence, he was knocked over by another blow from the frying pan. Who would have thought that the creature who had seemingly lost all combat capability could rise again? "Three fools. What are you playing at with this charade?" Li Xiaofeng gazed at the three incapacitated individuals, slowly unveiling his black plastic bag. With a roar, he revealed his true identity as the zombie demon king, lunging forward amidst their expressions of horror and despair. The trio could scarcely believe that the zombie would feign death, and the adeptness with which he wielded the frying pan was utterly astonishing. Chapter 21, Dual Talent, Eroded. The host successfully infected one person, gaining 10 evolution points. Li Xiaofeng's evolution value has now reached 120,400, yet he needs to infect an additional 28 individuals to ascend to the 5th tier of ordinary zombies. It is imperative to expedite his progress. Deep in thought, Li Xiaofeng paid no heed to his wounds. No blood flowed from his abdomen, and it posed no hindrance to him. He gradually approached the radiant hues of the multicolored light, where the brilliance matched that of ordinary humans, resplendent in color. Upon drawing closer, he indeed received a prompt, conveyed in a neutral electronic tone akin to his system's voice. Randomly acquire a talent. It will enhance your survival capabilities in the apocalypse. He stepped directly into the luminous brilliance, and immediately another prompt echoed. Absorbing talent. Time, 10 minutes. Now he understood why the three brothers had not entered but were instead engaged in combat. Evidently, time was required for absorption. Departing from the gleaming light, he expelled the three new zombies from the rooftop and secured the iron door tightly. This should ensure that no one disturbs my absorption. Li Xiaofeng let out a fierce howl and commenced the talent absorption. Talent absorption in progress. Absorption complete. Talent, bystander aura. Tier, unknown. Description, skilled at disguise. You can instantly transform into an inconspicuous bystander, significantly diminishing your presence. This is a perfect, yet clumsy ruse. Effect, there is a 50 chance to completely reduce your presence. He stood frozen, oblivious to the fading multicolored radiance, as if ensnared in contemplation. Is this truly a talent? Not only is it unrelated to combat, but its success rate is merely 50%. This is not a talent for becoming a super zombie. At the very least, it should enhance strength or speed. Ding. The host has completed the weekly task, Divine Talent. Acquire a talent. Rewards are being distributed. Enhancing the tier of Bystander Aura. Ding. Bystander Aura has no tier. Enhancement failed. Reward transfer initiated, giving rise to a new talent. Ding. The host comprehends a new talent. Protagonist Aura. Talent, Protagonist Aura. Tier, unknown. Description, skilled at disguise. You can instantly transform into the protagonist, radiating brilliance and attracting the attention of other beings. This is a perfect, yet clumsy ruse. Effect: there is a 50 chance to significantly enhance your presence. A week later, a new weekly task will be released. The host is advised to check back. Li Xiaofeng gazed skyward at a 45-degree angle, a gentle breeze caressing him, causing his pink cloak and black plastic bag to flutter slightly. He found himself utterly speechless, astonished that after the bystander aura, the system had rewarded him with a protagonist aura. Yet the effects were diametrically opposed. What purpose could this serve? Initially harboring great expectations for divine talents, he now fully recognized his folly. Is this what divine talent entails? A zombie donned in sunglasses gazed into the distance, extracting a cigarette from its down jacket and lighting it, an expression of melancholy upon its visage. In an instant, he acquired 2 new talents. Yet his combat prowess remained unchanged. Rather than true abilities, they resembled mere novelty skills, entirely divergent from his desires. Talents proved unreliable. Perhaps it was wiser to pursue the path of evolution. Fortunately, it was the zombies who gained these talents. Had they fallen into the hands of the survivors, the consequences would have been dire. No matter how inconspicuous one might become, to the zombies, one would still be fresh flesh, eagerly pounced upon. Li Xiaofeng tidied his disheveled hair and thoughts, donned a black plastic bag, and departed from the rooftop. Chapter 22. The function of the bystander aura within this aging building. A few residents kept their doors tightly shut, yet Li Xiaofeng still caught the scent of fresh flesh. Standing before the door of a third-floor apartment, he could distinctly sense the presence of 3 individuals inside and politely knocked. Knock knock. Sawastika. This household comprised a family of 3, a couple and their elementary school-age child, huddled together in the bedroom. All 3 bore ashen faces, clearly having endured prolonged hunger. And the young boy's cheeks were still stained with dried tears. Damn it! How could this calamity have unfolded so suddenly? How could it happen? The man, equally weak in spirit, struggled to accept the reality. The apocalypse had descended upon them without warning. Just the day before, he had been laboring diligently at work, harboring hopes for the future, looking forward to a brief respite over the weekend to spend time with his family. Yet, with a flash of blinding light, the sun had refused to rise again, replaced by an ever-present blood-red sun hanging ominously in the sky. The woman's face was etched with a pallid stillness, her eyes vacant, devoid of any semblance of hope. Each day, the 3 of them gazed through the window at the streets teeming with wandering zombies. With no sign of life remaining, the world had irrevocably changed. They had anticipated rescue, but with such widespread infection, it was likely the military had long since been overwhelmed. Especially in this small city, the shadow of death loomed heavily over them. Suddenly, a slow and rhythmic knocking jolted the 3 from their despair, their faces reflecting disbelief. Could this be a mere figment of their imagination? Knock knock. Get lost, you bastard. Li Xiaofeng remained unperturbed. As a zombie, he possessed ample patience, an essential trait of a hunter. Was there truly someone knocking? A flicker of excitement crossed the man's face, and his voice trembled with anticipation. Could hope arrive so swiftly? The woman, too, found a glimmer of light in her previously lifeless gaze, but soon her thoughts raced. Could it be the rioters from a few days prior? Days earlier, 3 brothers had knocked on their doors, and seeing their fierce appearance, the family had chosen not to respond out of fear. The man struggled to rise, shook his head, and softly declared, "I'll go check." He approached the door and peered through the peephole. At such a close distance, Li Xiaofeng could distinctly sense the tantalizing aroma of fresh flesh, a thrill beginning to stir within him. Stepping back 2 paces, he allowed the other party a complete view of himself, his right hand forming an awkward gesture resembling scissors. The man was taken aback, clad in sunglasses and a black plastic bag, with a blood-stained frying pan slung across his back. He certainly did not exude the aura of a benevolent soul. Could he be yet another criminal? Perhaps even a deranged one. Despair surged once more within the man's heart, extinguishing any intention of opening the door. In this post-apocalyptic world, despair and fear had laid bare the darkest facets of humanity, and allowing such a person entry would only hasten his demise. Li Xiaofeng, feeling a sense of urgency, recognized the man's reluctance to open the door and directly activated his protagonist aura. Activation failed. He was momentarily stunned. It was indeed unreliable. He attempted to activate the protagonist aura once more. The same target cannot be engaged within a short time frame. What a joke. Activate the bystander aura for me. Activation successful. Your presence has significantly diminished. Li Xiaofeng felt a surge of joy, surprised to find the probability of both auras failing to activate was relatively low. The man glanced outside and, without a backward glance, departed, entirely disregarding the door. Li Xiaofeng stood there, momentarily dazed. realizing that invoking the bystander aura might not have been a prudent choice. The other party had no intention of acknowledging him. Chapter 23. The protagonist aura. Had he completely disregarded my existence? Li Xiaofeng stood in a stupor, astonished at how decisively and nonchalantly the man had walked away. It seemed the effect of the bystander aura was rather formidable. Had the protagonist aura succeeded, he would have continued his descent, where survivors awaited his enticement on the first floor. The sole occupant of that level was an elderly man, sustaining himself daily on meager rice soup. His eyes devoid of life, frequently glancing outside. The sight of wandering zombies brought forth a complex expression, especially when he observed two old friends still engaged in their game of chess upon the stone bench below. The world had irrevocably changed, yet he possessed no means to alter it. The moment his food supply dwindled would mark the end of his existence. Suddenly, a series of knocks interrupted the old man's reverie. Were those the three wretched thugs again? Unable to contain his anger, the elder cursed aloud, "Get lost." He approached the door, shouting in fury. Li Xiaofeng was taken aback. Had he knocked so politely only to be met with curses? He persisted, knocking steadily, attempting to persuade the survivor of his amiable intentions. The old man, puzzled, wondered if it could possibly be those three. Peering through the peephole, he beheld a person dressed in a manner akin to a lunatic standing outside. A rescuer? Or merely a refugee? For a moment, the old man was taken aback by the peculiar attire, rendering him unable to ascertain the stranger's true identity. Protagonist aura activated. Activation successful. Li Xiaofeng was astonished at how smoothly it had transpired. In that instant, he felt a radiant glow emanating from his very being. With the divine will descending upon the earth, he stretched his arms wide, as if to embrace the baptism of sacred light. The elder, equally astonished, felt an inexplicable sense of reassurance that this figure had come to rescue him, bringing an unexpected peace. Though uncertain of the intention behind the outstretched arms, he sensed an aura of trustworthiness emanating from the stranger. "Are you here to save us?" The elder slowly opened the door, a flicker of excitement gracing his features. "Bow down, mortals. This is the radiance of the zombie overlord." Li Xiaofeng maintained his elevated stance, awaiting the offering of the elder, for a protagonist should never dirty his hands. Wherever he ventured, he was revered by the masses, and it seemed the elder would soon rush to grasp his down jacket, eyes glistening with tears and eagerness to lead the protagonist away. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed, startling him. The door had closed again. Was the protagonist truly so disregarded? He had assumed he was here to offer salvation, yet encountered a lunatic instead. The elder lamented, observing the figure standing there like a fool. Realizing that he had perhaps misjudged, such a person could not possibly be the savior. The urgency welled up in Li Xiaofeng, for his protagonist aura appeared less effective than anticipated. The elder remained unresponsive, even contemplating turning away. Fortunately, in a moment of desperation, Li Xiaofeng shoved a flyer through the door again. "Home service?" The elder picked it up and felt a surge of anger. He turned to open the door, ready to unleash a torrent of curses, but before he could utter a word, Li Xiaofeng lunged at him, tearing into the plastic bag with fervor. "Old man, opening and closing the door like this, are you jesting? Can you not show me some respect?" The elder, already weakened from hunger, found himself utterly incapable of defending against a mere level 4 ordinary zombie. The thought that this could be a zombie had never crossed his mind. Ding. The host has successfully infected one individual, earning 10 evolution points. Chapter 24. The enormous orange cat. Li Xiaofeng turned away, taking a step closer to advancing to level 5. It seemed the protagonist's aura still held some merit, easily luring out survivors. He ventured to the doors of the remaining 2 households, yet the protagonist's charm failed him. They did not even acknowledge his presence. Could it be that his attire was too striking? He mused silently, departing from the old building. Methodically testing each household proved too slow, and as time passed, the efficiency of infection would likely dwindle. To the bustling areas, Li Xiaofeng resolved. Moments later, he elegantly mounted a small green bicycle, embarking towards the city center. The school. He needed to infect over 20 more individuals to advance, and surely a place like a school would facilitate that. Whistling cheerfully, he pedaled on, scanning his surroundings with a demeanor reminiscent of a prosperous era. Cars were jammed along the streets, leaving only bicycles capable of navigating the thoroughfare. Suddenly, he discovered a yellow bus in the distance encircled by a horde of zombies, their ferocious roars filling the air, their eyes of vivid crimson. Could there be someone inside the bus? He observed the tightly shut doors, while the zombies clawed and gnawed at the exterior, seemingly drawn by something within. Intrigued, Li Xiaofeng began to edge closer to the bus. Such an opportunity was not to be squandered. It would be a waste to let these lowly, ordinary zombies slip away. As he drew nearer, he realized that the zombies were not attempting to breach the bus, but rather trying to ascend to its roof. Something must be atop the vehicle, rather than inside it? Li Xiaofeng's gaze shifted upward, and he was struck with a jolt of alarm. He had jumped off his bike, which continued to careen forward until it collided with a zombie and came to a halt. Li Xiaofeng sprawled on the ground, his down jacket's hood tightly concealing his head, and began to crawl forward stealthily. His movements were not only practiced, but also graceful. The bystander aura activated. Success. He let out a breath of relief. What a ridiculous situation this was. Upon the roof of the yellow bus lay a massive orange cat, its size nearly comparable to that of the bus itself, exuding an air of laziness, due to its color being similar to that of the bus and his less than stellar eyesight. Li Xiaofeng had completely overlooked this creature. The zombies below were evidently attracted to the high-level virus emanating from the orange cat. The feline basked in the sun, its large eyes curiously scanning a particular spot, as if something had just darted past. Li Xiaofeng proceeded with utmost caution. This orange cat was extraordinarily large, likely having reached the second tier of mutated beasts. It was undoubtedly superior to the large white dog and the yellow-haired dog he had encountered. Suddenly, the large orange cat seemed to grow bored, slowly rising to its feet, and with a single leap, it descended from the bus. Bang! A nearby private car crumpled under its weight, and as it extended its paw, several zombies were effortlessly dismembered. How dare these lowly creatures disturb its repose? The large orange cat surveyed the throng of zombies gathered near the bus, its claws striking with incredible speed, each attack claiming multiple zombies. In a flurry, limbs, thighs, and heads flew about chaotically. Bang! An arm even struck Li Xiaofeng on the head. Damn it, what terrible luck. He continued to crawl forward, with the bystander aura active. He was unlikely to attract attention, resembling a red caterpillar as he swiftly vacated the area. Behind him, numerous zombies were dispatched, unable to inflict a scratch upon the orange cat. Soon, a tranquil zone was cleared, allowing the plump feline to return to the bus, stretch luxuriously, and resume its slumber. Such slaughter of the zombie horde. Once I grow stronger, I shall return to settle the score. Chapter 25. The boys' dormitory. Li Xiaofeng rose gracefully, casting a fleeting glance at the plump cat, and hurriedly departed from the scene. After navigating through several streets, he finally arrived at the entrance of a prestigious institution, the Wanning University of Education, hailed as the city's academic sanctuary. Although it may not compare to the illustrious universities, it harbors its own merits while he acknowledges his shortcomings. As he stepped onto the campus, he observed the various academic buildings and dormitories standing tall, yet devoid of their former vibrancy. Along Xiaolin Road, on the playground, and in front of the sports center, a throng of zombies aimlessly wandered. Upon reaching the school's playground, he was astonished to see numerous zombies clad in camouflage attire. What a stroke of luck to have perfectly evaded military training. He couldn't help but lament that this year's freshmen had been spared such tribulations. As he meandered through the campus, his keen sense of smell detected the faint aroma of food. With a flourish of his pink cape, he gazed ahead and beheld a 6-story building. The entire structure was divided into countless small rooms, each adorned with an array of garments hanging from the balconies. A boys' dormitory, he surmised. Yet he was perplexed to find several pieces of women's clothing among them. What an oddity, he mused, albeit appreciating their aesthetic appeal, and with a triumphant shout, he strode directly into the student dormitory. Within the corridors of the dormitory, a handful of zombies roamed, their attire conspicuously absent. What uncivilized creatures they are. Dressed in flamboyant attire, he felt rather out of place, yet secretly reveled in his uniqueness as he navigated past each zombie. His acute sense of smell informed him that the scent of flesh and blood did not emanate from the first floor. Finding the staircase, he ascended with difficulty to the first floor, grumbling inwardly about the absence of an elevator in a 6-story building. Where had all that exorbitant tuition gone? Upon reaching the second floor, his body suddenly jolted with excitement. He had found it. Adjusting his sunglasses, he sauntered confidently towards the end of the corridor where a dormitory door stood before him. A sign above read 218. The door was firmly locked, with dried bloodstains adorning its surface. As he poised to knock, he was taken aback by the sound of conversation emanating from within. Son, do you think we should head to the activity center? A weak voice inquired. Li Xiaofeng paused, bewildered by the presence of a father and son within the school. What an extraordinary situation. Had a father truly endured decades of examination merely to gain entry into the education college? Such absurdity. Call me Dad, you ungrateful child, came a voice. Though weak, it retorted with unwavering determination. Realization dawned upon Li Xiaofeng. These must be his future roommates. Heading to the activity center is futile. Even though 100 individuals gather there, have you not noticed that every couple of days, boys venture out in search of food and water? How many return alive? Li Xiaofeng's hand froze mid-knock, astonished to overhear such intriguing insider information. 100 people? With thousands of evolution points at his disposal, he could ascend 2 ranks, rendering even armed adult men no match for him. A crimson glow flickered in his eyes, and he could not suppress a feral roar. "Who?" exclaimed a terrified student within. Both individuals were somewhat uncertain. They suspected it was a zombie, yet something felt amiss. Why did it sound so perverse? Li Xiaofeng mused. Could he have been discovered? Nevertheless, he felt compelled to knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. There was still no response from within, and the two dared not utter another sound. He continued to tap on the door, attempting to convey that he too was a survivor. 10 minutes elapsed, and he stood awkwardly in place, the incessant knocking drawing out his embarrassment. Was he being too presumptuous? Chapter 26. Activity Center. At long last, he received a reply. Is there a code? Li Xiaofeng froze, his hands suspended in midair. Did zombies require a code to knock? Was this a scene from a film? What was happening? Realizing this, he resumed knocking while simultaneously tossing a flyer through the gap at the bottom of the door. Unfortunately, the door of this university lacked transparent glass, preventing any eye contact. Otherwise, with his dashing appearance and protagonist aura, dealing with 2 college students would have been a mere trifle. Door-to-door service? One student cautiously picked up the flyer, his expression bizarrely perplexed. Son, he doesn't seem like a zombie. He must be a pervert. Shall we open the door? Another student inquired warily. Open what? In this apocalyptic world, some individuals are more dangerous than zombies, especially those who still think about services during the end times. They cannot be good people. It's obvious they are just perverted. Li Xiaofeng tilted his head slightly, standing dumbfounded, feeling as though he had been insulted. Wasn't this the boys' dormitory? Why did distributing a flyer yield such an odd reaction? He knocked again, but the two had fallen silent, entirely dismissing him. What kind of world was this? As a zombie, not only was he not infecting anyone, but he was also subjected to unwarranted humiliation. If he could speak, would he really need to distribute flyers? It seemed he needed to find some paper and a pen. Although his dexterity was lacking and he could not write beautifully, drawing some symbols would be feasible. Knowing that the two had likely branded him as a pervert, it was improbable they would open the door for him. He departed quietly, his silhouette obscured by the pink curtains, appearing forlorn and desolate. Li Xiaofeng left the dormitory building. Was this entire structure so sparsely populated? With only one room housing 2 people? He was eager to locate the activity center they mentioned, where supposedly hundreds of individuals gathered. His nose twitched, his keen sense of smell igniting as he imagined the potent scent of blood and flesh from so many people. Although it is merely an educational institution, its expanse is considerable, situated as it is in the outskirts rather than in a bustling area. An hour swiftly elapsed, yet he felt no discernible sensation. Shouldn't the activity center be established in a conspicuous location? He lifted his gaze ahead, where the words Western Restaurant were boldly inscribed. Has the student cafeteria reached such heights of sophistication? However, he soon found himself wandering towards another dining hall, the Eastern Restaurant. What sort of nonsense is this cafeteria up to? I had thought a student cafeteria could truly be this upscale. Suddenly, Li Xiaofeng's form convulsed violently, his sunglasses clattering to the ground, his demeanor one of overwhelming excitement. It was not the proximity to the cafeteria that stirred him, but rather the adjacent 2-story building, prominently labeled Activity Center. He caught a whiff of an overwhelming scent of flesh and blood. Moments later, Li Xiaofeng composed himself, donning his sunglasses with a flourish, straightening his frying pan, and brushing off the dust from the black plastic bag. With newfound confidence, he strode forth. Here I come. The Activity Center, though only 2 stories high, was expansive, flanked by 2 trees at its entrance. He was unfamiliar with one, and equally so with the other. With a subtle flick of his cloak, he approached, attempting to make his knocking sound irresistibly enticing. Knock, knock. At that moment, a cold, indifferent electronic voice suddenly resonated in his mind. Chapter 27. Random mission ding. Random mission triggered. Generating task. Ding. Random mission released. Efficiency infection. Mission overview. Within the building ahead lie hundreds of survivors, presenting a tremendous temptation for you. Go forth. Infect more humans, garner greater evolution points, and transform into a mightier zombie. Difficulty, unknown. Mission duration, none. Mission rewards, tiered rewards, comprising 3 levels. Infect 50% of survivors for 3rd-tier rewards. Infect 80% of survivors for 2nd-tier rewards. Infect 100% of survivors for 1st-tier rewards. Li Xiaofeng was momentarily taken aback, astonished not only by the abundance of evolution points available, but also by the issuance of a random mission. The system is quite user-friendly. Inside the activity center, numerous seats were arranged, with a stage at the forefront. Any student activities would typically be held here. Yet, the center now lacked its former vibrancy, replaced by a group of disheveled, wan-faced students huddled in various corners. Each countenance bore the marks of despair, devoid of the former vigor and enthusiasm. Friends, We need not be so despondent. A rotund middle-aged man ascended the stage. His name was Chen Qinshi, the dean of the academy. Unlike the other students, he was impeccably groomed, clad in a suit and tie. As the dean of this institution, I shall ensure that you all survive and emerge from this ordeal. The middle-aged man relished the opportunity to address the assembly, his visage radiating authority and righteousness. It is believed that the army will swiftly suppress this aberration. When that time comes, as the sole university in the city, it will undoubtedly be the primary target for rescue. I trust that the government will not forsake its elite talents. We must harbor hope and strive to survive. In the future, each of you shall emerge as true elites. The world ultimately requires your salvation. The middle-aged man spoke with fervor, passionately conveying his sentiments, yet the response was sparse. Indeed, we must not disappoint the expectations of our dean. We must have faith in his leadership, mustn't we? A bespectacled, refined student endeavored to evoke a response from his peers. As the student council president, he naturally sought the dean's favor. In truth, his instincts proved correct. Apart from those two female students, he was the only one not compelled to venture outside in search of sustenance. Each expedition was akin to walking a tightrope over a precipice, fraught with peril, especially now. As the East Cafeteria's supermarket was nearly emptied, any further search for food would necessitate venturing to the supermarkets of other dining halls. What once was a short distance now brimmed with danger. A moment's lapse could incite a horde of zombies in pursuit. The outcome would be utterly horrific. Many students remained sullen and unresponsive, their spirits seemingly extinguished. In the past, they might have rallied to the call, but now, with their bellies unfilled, how could they muster any zeal? The middle-aged man felt a twinge of awkwardness, clearing his throat in preparation to invigorate them. Soon, someone would be dispatched to search for food. Surely, they would not willingly embark on such a venture without some encouragement. Just as he was about to speak, a sudden knock resounded at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Chen Qin froze momentarily, his expression shifting to one of confusion, mirrored by the rest of the group. Since the apocalypse began, they had never heard a knock from the outside world. Today, no students had ventured out for food, leaving only the possibility of other humans. The notion of zombies was never entertained. Who among them would knock politely? Upon hearing the knock, a flicker of excitement crossed the middle-aged man's face. Whether it be a savior arriving or other survivors seeking refuge, it only boded well for him. At the very least, it could provide him with someone willing to fight alongside him. Though Chen Qin trembled slightly, he endeavored to project an air of authority. He exchanged a knowing glance with the student council president, who promptly understood. The refined student hastened to the door, peering through a small pane of glass. However, he was instantly taken aback, his expression frozen in disbelief as he gazed outside. There stood an individual, clad in sunglasses obscuring their eyes, and peculiarly, a black plastic bag was affixed to their mouth. Behind them was a frying pan, and they draped a pink curtain over their shoulders. Zhang Xingming was momentarily speechless. The eccentricity of the stranger's attire shattered his previous understanding, for he had never encountered such a sight, even in peacetime. Unforeseen was the arrival of the apocalypse, as all manner of grotesque beings emerged. Even more perplexing was the sight of one such entity raising its hand above its head, forming a heart shape. What sort of individual is this? What is happening, Xingming? The middle-aged man, noticing the prolonged silence, felt a twinge of confusion. Zhang Xingming, snapping back to reality, still bore an expression of deep strangeness in his eyes. He shook his head and turned to say, "Director, it appears to be a madman who has escaped." Li Xiaofeng's hands suddenly stiffened, a hint of embarrassment washing over him. "What do you mean by madman? I merely wish to convey a sense of camaraderie, and instead, I am deemed insane. Let the protagonist's aura be unleashed. Mortals, prepare yourselves for the baptism of my holy light." Ding. Activation failed. A madman, you say? Then I shall not enter. The middle-aged man approached the door, and upon seeing Li Xiaofeng's outlandish attire, he too was taken aback. Regaining his composure, he resolutely refused entry. Allowing a madman inside would not only endanger everyone, but would also render him incapable of command. Admitting him would be inviting disaster. Li Xiaofeng felt a pang of hurt, his legs slightly bending. He formed another heart shape. Yet, they all wore expressions of disappointment and departed from the entrance, astonished that the end times could so casually unleash madness. Blast it! Li Xiaofeng's heart felt as if 1,000 mythical beasts were rushing past him. What in the world is this? I must change my appearance. These people seem incapable of accepting my radiant brilliance. He began to reflect on himself, ultimately concluding that the taste of the humans inside was dreadfully pedestrian. Clothing store, Li Xiaofeng silently chanted, preparing to revamp his look. Mortals, get ready to witness my new demeanor. As he was about to leave, he seized the moment when everyone had turned their backs to the door and, with kindness, piled 10 zombies at the entrance. He cleverly utilized the two trees in front to secure the zombies with a rope. Beholding his meticulous handiwork, Li Xiaofeng let out a triumphant howl. Now, surely no one would dare to venture out. As the king of zombies, he naturally sought the highest reward. If anyone were to step outside in search of food and become infected while he was away, who would he hold accountable? He turned slightly to glance at the vibrant pink curtains behind him, feeling a swell of satisfaction. The crimson light of the blood moon shone upon him, as Li Xiaofeng straightened his posture and strode forth. Is this the light of righteousness? Chapter 29. Chen Qinshu. Unbeknownst to the individuals inside, they remained oblivious to Li Xiaofeng's well-intentioned actions. The middle-aged man continued to indulge himself in a self-congratulatory speech. Before the military's rescue arrives, we must first engage in self-rescue. The shortage of food and water is undoubtedly known to all, yet fortunately, we have brave and responsible university students of the new era among us. The times demand their presence, and we require them even more. Let us extend our blessings to the heroic Xiao Wei and Ji, wishing them success in their quest for sustenance. As the rotund middle-aged man finished speaking, two pallid students, their eyes filled with trepidation, rose to their feet. To remain here, it was imperative that two individuals ventured out every 2 days in search of food and water. Such was the decree established by Chen Qinshu. Initially, entering the Eastern Dining Hall supermarket posed no great challenge, as the distance was not far. However, as the supermarket gradually emptied, the students were compelled to journey further afield, thus amplifying the peril they faced. The previous pair of students returned empty-handed, one of them transformed into a zombie, further intensifying the collective fear. Listening to the director's encouragement, the two students felt an increasing dread, their legs trembling slightly. Nonetheless, they approached the door, each bearing a hefty backpack and wielding iron rods. Just as they were about to push the door open, a zombie's face suddenly pressed against the glass, gazing into those wide, red eyes. The dried blood at the corners of its mouth, and its pallid visage, they screamed in terror, losing control and collapsing to the ground. What is happening? They haven't even stepped outside yet, and are in such a state? The middle-aged man's face flushed with anger as he approached the door, astonished by the ineptitude of the two. Who the hell is responsible for this? Peering outside, he was met with a mass of zombies crowding the entrance, lingering ominously. Inside, with over 100 individuals present, zombies frequently roamed outside, but never had there been such a multitude blocking the door. Due to the throng of zombies outside, the plan for today's food search was thwarted. Everyone's rations would be halved. The middle-aged man spoke with a countenance full of fury, his gaze darkened. The students felt a simmering anger but dared not voice it. The first to rebel had been unceremoniously tossed outside. All bore witness to his fate, as the horde of zombies overwhelmed him with brutal savagery. After consuming a meager portion of food, the students lay down where they were, striving to conserve their energy. Resembling lifeless corpses, the unending crimson sun rendered the world devoid of day and night. Yet, humanity still required rest. Many students gradually succumbed to slumber, finding a fleeting glimmer of hope only in their dreams. Lu Yuan surveyed his surroundings, slowly rising to feign a trip to the corner restroom, but instead made his way to a small chamber. This was the director's exclusive domain, one that other students could not easily access. Lu Yuan pushed the door open and entered. He regarded the middle-aged man within with a flicker of disdain and animosity in his eyes. Yet he remained respectfully rooted in place. The man patted his ample belly, a hint of satisfaction gracing his features. Truly remarkable. I shall reward you with a can. The dean retrieved a can from the corner of the room and casually tossed it to the female student on the floor. She possessed a pure countenance and a graceful figure, yet her eyes were devoid of life. Upon seeing the can, a flicker of vitality graced her features, and she reluctantly accepted it before departing the room. Lu Yuan observed the former belle of the class compromising her dignity for a mere can, and a wave of irony washed over him. However, upon catching sight of the can, a predatory glint sparkled in his eyes. Should the dean show interest in him, he would not hesitate to offer himself. Chapter 30. Successfully infiltrated. As the apocalypse descended, countless individuals lacked the courage to take their own lives, choosing instead to exist like mere shells of their former selves. A morsel of food was sufficient to compel them to relinquish all semblance of dignity. Lu Yuan had arrived. The dean slowly donned his clothing, maintaining an air of authority as he spoke softly. No one desires to resist, do they? Lu Yuan shook his head. He was the dean's planted spy among the students. Should anyone dare to rebel, he would promptly inform the dean. A group of naive students, even in the face of the apocalypse, resembled lambs. How could they possibly outmaneuver Chen Qinshu? Even Lu Yuan was unaware of how many traitors like himself were among them. The dean casually tossed a sausage, gesturing for him to leave. Lu Yuan's hands trembled slightly as he tucked the sausage away. He inadvertently glanced at the corner of the room, where a massive backpack filled with food lay, his eyes glinting with profound greed. Chen Qinshu watched as Lu Yuan exited the room, then retrieved some beef jerky from the backpack, savoring it slowly. Even amidst the apocalypse, his life remained carefree, prompting him to marvel at his own cunning. He had effortlessly ascended to the dean's position during peaceful times, and even in the end times. He was still among the elite. The next day arrived swiftly. Everyone gradually awakened from their hunger-induced stupor, simultaneously harboring a ludicrous thought. They had survived yet another day. Chen Qinshu rose slowly, took out some milk and bread, and after satisfying his hunger, tidied his appearance before venturing outside. Surely, the zombies at the entrance had dispersed by now. He nodded at each emaciated student, presenting himself as remarkably approachable. As he reached the door, poised to peer outside, an abrupt knocking startled him, compelling him to glance out. A figure clad in black leather, donning sunglasses and a black mask, stood at the door, bearing a long sword encased in a golden scabbard. This peculiar image was strikingly out of place in the apocalypse. Yet Chen Qinshu sensed the individual's formidable strength and suspected they might come to their rescue. Li Xiaofeng's expression was cold as he successfully activated the protagonist's halo, feeling an immediate surge of brilliance. The hundreds inside were firmly under his control. His leather attire radiated superiority, particularly with the long sword he had acquired from a children's toy store. Truly, an embodiment of overwhelming charisma. Chen Qinshu observed the extraordinary figure outside, and upon shifting his gaze, he noticed that the multitude of zombies from the previous day had vanished. Could it be that they were all eradicated by him? Instantly donning a sycophantic smile, Chen Qinshu eagerly opened the door. Li Xiaofeng felt a surge of excitement, his body quivering involuntarily. Yet he endeavored to maintain his composure as he stepped inside. "Might I inquire, brave hero, are you here to rescue us?" Chen Qinshu inquired with a gentle smile, slightly bending to lower his height beneath Li Xiaofeng's stature. Li Xiaofeng offered no response, turning away to wipe the drool that had escaped onto his mask, feeling as though he had diminished his own image. Yet he could hardly contain himself. He yearned to transform into a monstrous being, infecting everyone around him to amass thousands of evolution points. However, he restrained himself. Should he unleash his power now, a multitude would surely flee, and he alone could not stop them. Strategy was essential. As an intelligent zombie, he could not resort to brute force so easily. That would be a disservice to his refined nature. After all, elegance is eternally in vogue. Chapter 31. A fortuitous opportunity. Li Xiaofeng wiped away his drool, secured his black mask, and gave a slight toss to his non-existent bangs. He shook his head at the middle-aged rotund figure, who appeared to be a leader. He had no desire to admit he was there to save them, and his inability to speak would undoubtedly expose him. The aura of a passerby activated. Ding. Activation successful. Li Xiaofeng felt a surge of joy and began his performance. He crouched down, covering his face with his hands and shaking his head in a display of excessive sorrow. Chen Qinshu found this peculiar. He had previously sensed an intangible aura from the individual that had deterred him from acting recklessly. Yet now, the man seemed akin to an ordinary passerby. Especially with this demeanor, he resembled a survivor who had narrowly escaped. Could it be he had misjudged? Chen Qinshu straightened his posture, exuding authority, and feigned a cough. This student. Before he could finish, the crowd witnessed Li Xiaofeng growing increasingly animated, his actions becoming ever more exaggerated. Ultimately, he began to roll on the ground, his legs kicking vigorously and his hands clutching at his sparse hair, embodying a tragic figure of despair. Chen Qinshu's lips twitched. He had never encountered such a spirited student. "Could you tone down the theatrics a bit?" he implored. "Dear student, do not grieve. You must live on in place of your loved ones. As long as you adhere to the rules here, we shall not cast you out." A faint smile graced Chen Qinshu's face as he spoke gently, secretly pleased to have gained an additional free laborer. Li Xiaofeng seemed to gradually quell his sorrow, nodding obediently as he settled into a corner to contemplate his strategy. How could he infect everyone around him? The door could not be locked from the inside. Should he erupt in violence, there would undoubtedly be those who would flee. An even greater challenge lay before him. He needed to infect everyone within a brief span of time. If even one individual fell victim to his infection first, and subsequently infected others, it would no longer count as his achievement. Not only would he forfeit valuable evolution points, but the rewards of the task would also diminish. Everyone regarded Li Xiaofeng with indifference. An additional refugee merely represented another soul awaiting death. Seizing this moment, the middle-aged man stepped forward to deliver a speech. "Today, we are fortunate. Not only have we welcomed a new student, but the zombies that lingered at the entrance yesterday have vanished. I believe today shall yield even greater rewards. Tomorrow will be brighter still." Chen Qinshu cleared his throat and suddenly cast a profound gaze toward Li Xiaofeng. his eyes glimmering with unshed tears, and spoke earnestly. "Dear student, are you willing to venture forth with 2 others to seek sustenance? To save us all?" Li Xiaofeng was momentarily taken aback. Seek food? Accompany others? What a fortuitous opportunity. He glanced at the rotund, middle-aged man ahead, silently acknowledging his cleverness. With fervor, Li Xiaofeng nodded vigorously, his excitement palpable. The others looked on in astonishment. Was there truly someone unafraid of death in these times? Chen Qinxiu too was somewhat stunned. Had this individual's awareness reached such heights? He nodded slightly. Admiration etched on his face. Indeed, the new era requires talents such as yourself. You are the backbone of society. Xiaowei, Azai, accompany this new classmate. I am certain you will achieve remarkable results today. The 2 students, pallid and trembling with fear, slowly rose to their feet. There was no escaping this fate. Chen Qinxiu deliberately produced a sausage and handed it to Li Xiaofeng as a form of encouragement. Previously, every time someone ventured out for food, a reward would be given. But as supplies dwindled, this practice had ceased. In Chen Qinxiu's eyes, a human life was worth no more than a single sausage. As Li Xiaofeng was a newcomer, it was essential to offer him something to win his loyalty. Everyone's eyes sparkled with greed, eager to snatch that sausage for themselves. Li Xiaofeng, however, felt bewildered. What use did a zombie have for such a trinket? Chapter 32. The restroom on the playground. Ultimately, the 3 of them slowly exited the activity center. The 2 companions still gripped by fear, knowing that a moment's inattention could spell death. Li Xiaofeng, however, exuded confidence, even patting the shoulders of his companions in encouragement. Xiaowei and Azai were somewhat uplifted by his demeanor, feeling a slight relaxation. This newcomer was so composed. Could he possibly possess extraordinary talents? In the face of the apocalypse, perhaps humanity would indeed give rise to saviors or beings with special abilities. Yet, as they drew near him, an unsettling tremor coursed through their hearts. Akin to facing a formidable adversary, the crowd watched the trio leave with hopeful anticipation, even waving them off. He hoped they would return with a substantial amount of food, allowing them to survive for a few more days. Li Xiaofeng, entirely at ease, wrapped his arms around the shoulders of the 2, exuding the demeanor of a close brother. In truth, it was merely a ploy to prevent their escape and to avoid the risk of them being infected by other zombies, which would be a grave miscalculation. "Brother, where shall we find food?" Xiao Wei's voice trembled slightly, his fear intensifying upon sighting the wandering zombies in the distance. Li Xiaofeng, with his arms around them, led them directly to the nearby restroom on the playground. "Brother, we are not going to the restroom to search for food." Both were puzzled, wondering if this elder had some peculiar inclination. Why rush to the restroom while they were so desperately in need of food? Yet, Li Xiaofeng merely shook his head, adjusting his sunglasses, embodying the appearance of a sage from the mountains. He ushered them to the restroom door, signaling for them to wait patiently. He entered, surveyed the interior, and found no zombies. Evidently, the undead were not fond of such places. Gesturing an O with his hands, he beckoned them inside, carefully shutting the door behind him. "Brother, how can we even think of using the restroom when we are starving? We haven't eaten anything." They gazed at their reflections in the restroom mirror. Their faces gaunt and weary, the vitality of their former selves utterly vanished. "What are you doing?" Xiaowei suddenly noticed Li Xiaofeng locking the door tightly and wrapping his arms around his neck. A chill of dread washed over him as he realized Li Xiaofeng's head was drawing closer. A wave of horror surged through him. Was this man deranged? Aji, witnessing Li Xiaofeng's actions, felt a shiver run down his spine, but did not intervene. Was it truly that exhilarating? Just as Xiaowei attempted to push him away, a sharp pain erupted from his neck, blood gushing forth. Li Xiaofeng had removed his mask, revealing his fangs, with blood staining the corners of his mouth. Xiaowei clutched his neck, terror flooding his eyes. He could hardly believe that this was a zombie, one whose behavior was eerily similar to that of a human. Aji, equally alarmed, exclaimed in shock, yet there was no one outside to come to their aid. Li Xiaofeng cast aside Xiaowei and slowly approached Aji. "Scream all you want. No one will heed your cries." Ding. The host has successfully infected one individual, gaining 10 evolution points. His evolution points had reached 150, 400. Based on his estimations, if he infected the hundreds gathered at the activity center, he would directly advance to a 6th-tier ordinary zombie. Li Xiaofeng adjusted his hairstyle. Feeling increasingly refined, perhaps he should procure a folding fan to complement his distinguished demeanor. With a gait that betrayed all familial ties, he wandered, contemplating his next course of action. Is it not rather conspicuous to return at this very moment? In less than an hour, one has already gone astray. A rather difficult situation to explain. Suddenly, he slightly twitched his nose and raised his gaze towards the building ahead. The holy library of the school? He caught a whiff of the aroma of books, mingled with the scent of fresh flesh. Chapter 33. the library. Li Xiaofeng strode towards the library. After all, returning was no longer an option. He might as well take this opportunity to infect the survivors in other parts of the school, treating it as a means of earning a little extra. The ocean of knowledge beckoned him to immerse himself in its depths. Upon entering the library, Li Xiaofeng felt a jolt of energy. Indeed, the library was different, exquisitely decorated, exuding an air of sanctity and solemnity. Numerous zombies roamed beside the bookshelves, resembling university students from a peaceful era. Alas, the atmosphere was starkly different from before. Hey, that zombie, stop gnawing on the bookshelf. Display some decorum. Li Xiaofeng raised his right hand, his expression stern, wondering how, as a new breed, they could lack any sense of refinement. At the entrance of the library stood a barrier akin to that of a subway station, requiring a student card to pass through. Yet, how could that possibly hinder Li Xiaofeng? With a push of his left hand and a stride of his right foot, he leaped over the barrier with the grace of a character from a wartime film. The movement was fluid and remarkably elegant. Bang! Crack! Time seemed to freeze at that instant. Li Xiaofeng supported himself with both hands, rose nonchalantly, brushed off the dust from his leather jacket, as if nothing had transpired. His nose twitched slightly as he surveyed the first floor before decisively ascending the stairs to continue his search. Li Xiaofeng's body trembled slightly as he wiped the drool from the corner of his mouth and slowly drew out the toy sword from behind him. In that moment, an aura of murderous intent enveloped him, as if the very dust in the air danced around him, his presence overwhelmingly powerful. Like an ancient swordsman, he made his way toward the women's restroom. At that moment, Zhang Xueshen's face was ashen, her petite frame trembling uncontrollably, evoking a sense of sympathy. As the class genius, she was studying in the library even on the weekend. She had been reveling in the sea of knowledge. However, after a sudden blinding light illuminated the room, the blood-red sun hung high in the sky. Caught completely off guard, and with no inkling of the impending doom, the apocalypse had arrived. Fortunately, despite being a scholarly prodigy, she had a penchant for bringing snacks to the library, as weekends often saw only a handful of visitors. This hobby of hers unexpectedly became her salvation. She witnessed a male classmate suddenly collapse nearby, his legs convulsing violently, his chair overturned in the chaos. Initially, she thought he had taken up dancing during his study break, merely to capture her attention. However, when she saw the male scholar rise, her heart raced in terror. The zombie-like appearance of the individual sent her scurrying to the last stall of the women's restroom, too frightened to emerge. As time slowly passed, she held on to the hope that someone would come to her rescue, especially since Monday was just around the corner and students would surely return to the library. Yet, her hopes were dashed. The outside world echoed with the roars of beasts, gradually instilling despair within her. Through the window, she glimpsed the blood-red sun and the alumni wandering the campus. The world had transformed. Thankfully, Zhang Xueshen had enough snacks to sustain her for a while, and the toilet still functioned. On the 10th day of the apocalypse, Zhang Xueshen had descended into utter hopelessness. Nothing had changed, except for the dwindling food supplies. A faint sound of footsteps approached, accompanied by the scraping of something against the ground. Li Xiaofeng, with his nose slightly twitching, dragged a toy sword along the floor, heading straight for the last stall in the restroom. Knock, knock, knock. A gentle rap on the door resounded. Zhang Xueshen jumped in surprise. Yet she forced herself to remain silent. The knocking persisted, with no voice accompanying it. This eerie situation sent shivers down her spine. Unable to contain herself any longer, she whispered, "Is someone here to rescue me?" Li Xiaofeng glanced at the restroom door, realizing he could not squeeze inside, especially after tripping at the entrance moments ago. There was a significant gap beneath the restroom door. In peacetime, driven by a sudden whim, he had once peeked under the stall to see the guy next door. That had been the most awkward moment of his life. Such memories were best left unexamined. Chapter 34. You are not handsome at all. Li Xiaofeng gathered his thoughts, extending his gloved right hand into the restroom, forming a no gesture towards the inside. Surely, the other party would understand. Despite her rising excitement, Zhang Xueshen maintained her composure. In times of apocalypse, zombies would forever remain zombies, yet humans might not always be human. Can you say something? Do you have identification? Li Xiaofeng was suddenly taken aback, his mind struggling to comprehend. Identification? A legitimate certificate for infected humans? There was no place to obtain one. He knew the other person was highly cautious and likely would not open the door easily. Turning away, he decided to find something to prove his identity. He initially thought it would be simple to find some paper and a pen in the library, but after a circuitous search, he discovered a troubling fact. There was only a mobile phone on the table, and not a single person had brought a pen. The ocean of knowledge has been polluted by you all. He picked up a mobile phone and pressed a button at random. The screen unexpectedly lit up. On the 10th day of the apocalypse, a phone that could last 10 days on standby. He noticed the logo displayed a plump pear. A counterfeit device. Truly impressive. Upon opening it, he found there was no password set, allowing immediate access. Although devoid of paper and pen, it could still serve a purpose. He opened the messaging app, intending to convey some information to the restroom survivor. However, the pre-installed message left him momentarily speechless. 8 a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m., playing Honor of Kings. In the afternoon, from 2 to 5, I engaged in gaming. From 6 to 10 in the evening, I indulged in a round of PUBG, and from 10 to 11, I dedicated myself to studying. It was indeed a fulfilling and joyous day. Li Xiaofeng decisively erased the original messages. Should anyone glimpse them, they might mistakenly believe he was not a serious zombie. Hello, I am here to rescue you. He extended his phone into the restroom, commencing his seduction scheme. Before long, the phone was flung back out. Li Xiaofeng was taken aback. How cautious they were. Truly, a top student who had seen through his plan in an instant. He had initially intended to bite as soon as the other party reached out. After all, both a bite to the neck and a bite to the hand could lead to infection. Are you a student at this school? Why do you remain silent? 10 minutes elapsed, and Zhang Xiueshan began to regret her caution. Had she been too careful, causing the other to lose patience and depart? Although I am quite handsome, I am mute and have come specifically from the activity center to rescue you. Li Xiaofeng extended his left hand, while his right hand twitched incessantly, resembling a spasm. Typing as a zombie was truly tormenting. Zhang Xiueshan gazed at the words on the phone, her heart slightly easing. Though he seemed narcissistic, he likely wasn't a bad person. Creak. As the restroom door swung open, Zhang Xiueshan froze in place. There, crouched on the floor, was an individual clad in sunglasses as he donned a toy sword upon his back, flicked his twitching right hand, and departed from the ladies' restroom. The library, a structure of 5 stories, yielded no survivors as he continued his upward patrol. Before taking his leave, he casually seized a book, intending to present it to the individuals at the activity center, for books are indeed the true sustenance of the spirit, albeit the title read Postpartum Care for Sows. At the University Activity Center, anticipation hung in the air, everyone eagerly awaiting the sound of a knock. The fate of the trio was intricately tied to their ability to return with sustenance. Chen Qinsho lingered at the entrance, his mind devoid of the inclination to deliver a speech. Suddenly, he spotted a figure approaching in the distance. The toy sword upon their back instantly revealed the identity of the newcomer. Was it the new student? Yet, why did only he return? A sense of foreboding enveloped Chen Qinsho. Where were Xiao Wei and Aji? A collective realization seemed to wash over everyone. Some appeared numb, while others were expressions of sorrow. Li Xiaofeng, clutching his head with both hands, discarded his backpack and retreated to a corner, embodying a visage of utter despair. Chen Qinsho felt a twinge of awkwardness, surprised that his presence was entirely overlooked. Did he have something in his backpack? A flicker of excitement crossed Chen Qinsho's eyes. Any gain would suffice. The absence of individuals mattered little. Fewer mouths would lessen the consumption of food. However, his expression froze upon seeing the book within the backpack. You were sent out to gather food, and yet you returned with a mere book? And of all titles, Postpartum Care for Sows? Chen Qinsho's countenance darkened as he cast several glances at Li Xiaofeng, who, adorned with sunglasses, paid him no mind. Tomorrow, 5 individuals shall venture out for food. As for the new student, since there were no spoils today, you two shall join the expedition tomorrow. With that, he cast the book disdainfully to the ground and retreated to his small room without a backward glance. Yet Li Xiaofeng trembled at the words, elated by the revelation. What a splendid leader. Thus commenced his journey of hunting, his evolution proving far easier compared to that of other zombies. 5 days swiftly passed, ushering in the 3rd weekend since the onset of the apocalypse. Li Xiaofeng brimmed with excitement. Thanks to Chen Qinsho's benevolent cooperation, his evolution value had soared to 390. 400. In total, he had newly infected 23 individuals, 16 of whom had ventured out with him in search of food, lured into the notorious restroom. While the remaining 7 were survivors found scattered throughout the school, seduced by his remarkable acting skills. Seated on the playground, a cigarette nestled between his lips, Li Xiaofeng gazed at the blood-red sun above, his heart racing with exhilaration. Tomorrow, he would successfully ascend to the 5th tier of ordinary zombies. The clock soon struck midnight, heralding the arrival of a new week. The blood-red sun once again cast its crimson glow upon every zombie beneath its light. Suddenly, the wild roars echoed throughout the campus, creating an atmosphere of sheer terror. A crimson glow enveloped him as well. He felt a sense of secret satisfaction, for his cleverness had spared him from returning to the activity center. Had he done so, amidst the normalcy of others, his own glowing presence would have rendered him indistinguishable from the zombies outside, leading to an undeniably awkward situation. Chapter 36. Elite Zombie. Li Xiaofeng's cold, scarlet eyes surveyed the peculiar behavior of the surrounding zombies. Had they evolved once more? The crimson light lasted only a few minutes before dissipating. However, all the zombies had experienced a notable enhancement in their fundamental strength, successfully evolving into third-tier ordinary zombies. Was this not a tad too effortless? System. Do the zombies evolve every week? Ding. The energy from the blood sun can only elevate zombies to fifth-tier ordinary zombies. To ascend further, they must consume mutated beasts or infect humans. That's a relief. I wouldn't want to toil endlessly only to end up as the bottom of the zombie hierarchy. What use is intelligence without strength? Ding. A new weekly task has been activated. Please check host. Weekly task, path to evolution. Successfully evolve into an elite zombie. Task description. In this apocalyptic world, the brilliance of the blood sun enables every zombie to evolve. As the only zombie possessing intelligence, how can I allow them to catch up? Strive to evolve. Become the sovereign among the zombie clan. Task difficulty, 3 stars. Task duration, within 7 days. Task reward, a random rare talent. Xiaofeng was momentarily taken aback. An elite zombie? Ding. Ordinary zombies can reach a maximum of 5th tier. To evolve further will result in becoming an elite zombie, significantly enhancing basic strength and randomly acquiring a skill. It is no wonder that the energy from the blood sun only elevates zombies to 5th tier ordinary. Any further progression leads to elite level zombies. At that stage, their power would undoubtedly see a substantial increase, no longer incapable of chasing down even an ordinary person. The college students at the activity center, through Xiaofeng's relentless efforts, had dwindled from 108 to 90. Each individual found it difficult to sleep that night. Even Chen Qinshu bore a troubled expression. The roars of the zombies outside were chillingly unsettling, and having experienced it once, they understood what it signified. Damn this apocalypse. Chen Qinshu puffed on a cigarette. An absolute luxury in this world, one he typically refrained from indulging in. His face was clouded with gloom. None of the 5 who had ventured out for food that day had returned. Over the course of 6 days, only one had returned on a single occasion. And for the remaining 4 days, only Xiaofeng had come back, with today being the first time even he had not returned. Little did he know that Xiaofeng had deliberately allowed them to escape, to avoid raising suspicion. Chen Qinshu had never doubted him, as their interests had never conflicted. Everyone crouched on the ground, trembling in fear. The night of the zombie revelry had plunged humanity into a deeper abyss of despair. As the night swiftly passed, a profound melancholy enveloped the group. Silence reigned, food supplies dwindled, and the specter of death loomed ever closer. Today, 5 individuals were to venture forth in search of sustenance. What was once a foray every 2 days had now transformed into a daily necessity. The 5 wore expressions of pallor and numbness as they shouldered their backpacks and approached the door. At that moment, a knock resonated. Xiaofeng had arrived at the activity center early, having come from the playground. Fortunately, he was timely. Had the 5 ventured out unaccompanied, infection would have been a dire consequence. Chen Qingshu's eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope as he hastily opened the door, his gaze fixated on Xiaofeng's backpack. Despite often returning alone, it was always filled with provisions. The survival of the group hinged significantly on Xiaofeng's efforts, and he had gradually garnered a measure of respect among his peers. Chapter 37. Ascending once more back already? Chen Qingshu inquired, a smile gracing his features. Accustomed as he was to the taciturn demeanor of the boy before him, as long as food was procured, everything else was trivial. With a reassuring gesture, he kindly unstrapped Xiaofeng's backpack. Upon opening it, he discovered it brimming with an abundance of food, bottled water, potato chips, and compressed biscuits. My classmate, you have worked hard these past few days. You need to go out today? Xiaofeng was taken aback. With evolution points in hand, his struggle seemed trivial. He quickly shook his head, displaying a fierce determination not to be dissuaded. My dear classmate, please stay here today. We are all immensely grateful to you. A female classmate stood, tears glistening in her eyes. Indeed, we are all very grateful. The collective rose, their once grimy faces now illuminated with gratitude. In the midst of this apocalypse, such unity of spirit rendered Xiaofeng worthy of profound respect. Xiaofeng himself was surprised to find he had unwittingly attained such esteem. He extended his hands, trembling slightly, signaling for silence. Behind his sunglasses, his gaze swept across each individual before he slowly shook his head. Shouldering his backpack, he resolutely departed the activity center alongside the 5 classmates, leaving behind an imposing silhouette of unwavering resolve. As Xiaofeng's eyes scanned the crowd, a shiver ran through them. Yet, the actions of this young man moved them deeply, causing them to overlook their peculiar feelings. This was the essence of a true hero, an unnamed hero. Chen Qingshu, equally stirred, remarked with fervor, though a subtle shadow lingered in his eyes. The rise of a student to such prominence was detrimental to his authority. An opportunity to eliminate him must be sought. Otherwise, he might soon usurp his position. Unbeknownst to Li Xiaofeng, he remained blissfully ignorant of the lurking danger, as plotting against a zombie was surely a fool's errand. In the eyes of the 5 companions, a glimmer of hope emerged as they gazed upon this valiant student. Half an hour later, the 6 had gathered within the restroom. The 5 displayed expressions of astonishment, their gazes filled with incredulity at the sight of food within the restroom. Is there truly food here? Am I not merely dreaming? Li Xiaofeng quietly lingered behind the others, skillfully closing the restroom door. Surely, he did not dream of the arduous effort he expended transporting supplies from the supermarket. To entice the others, he had deliberately orchestrated this scenario. And the outcome was surprisingly effective. All the students fell for the ruse. Moments later, several zombies, drawn by the scent of humanity, began to scratch at the door. With a clang, Li Xiaofeng opened the door from within, expelling the 5 new zombies. He slightly twisted his body, feeling an increase in his strength. Ding. The host successfully infected 1 individual, earning 10 evolution points. Ding. The host successfully infected another individual, earning 10 evolution points. Ding. The host's evolution points have reached 400,400. Fulfilling the criteria for advancement. The host begins to evolve. The evolution of the host is complete. Current rank, 5th tier, ordinary zombie. The host's strength has increased. Speed has slightly improved, and both vision and hearing have been enhanced, along with an increase in physical agility. Ding. The host has ascended to a 5th tier, ordinary zombie. And the system has unlocked a new feature, a backpack. Items can now be transferred into the system's exclusive backpack, which currently holds 6 slots. To Li Xiaofeng's surprise, the system included a backpack function. He rejoiced, envisioning reclaiming his former warrior gear, a down jacket, plastic bags, and the dapper elite among zombies. A frying pan. A pink cape, striding down the street with undeniable flair. Chapter 38. Poisoning. Li Xiaofeng's evolution points panel had reached 40,500. He was merely 460 points away from advancing to the next tier of elite zombie, and the university students at the activity center were more than sufficient for his evolution. With the weekly tasks allowing only 7 days, he needed to acquire the rare talent. Given the current infection rate, it would be exceedingly difficult to infect everyone. He needed to devise alternative strategies. A solitary zombie sat on the playground, donning sunglasses and smoking a cigarette, lost in contemplation. An hour later, Li Xiaofeng suddenly sprang to his feet, howling with excitement as he conceived a flawless plan. Rather than seeking out other survivors, he returned directly to the university activity center. Chen Qingquan, upon witnessing the loss of yet another 5 individuals and the absence of any food, wore a profoundly gloomy expression. Li Xiaofeng appeared despondent, even striking his own head in frustration. I loathe my own ineptitude. He discarded his empty backpack and walked straight to a wall. Thud, thud. Li Xiaofeng began to repeatedly bang his head against the wall, embodying a visage of collapse and guilt. This display left everyone momentarily stunned. Such a level of self-awareness seemed exceedingly profound. Words of blame are difficult to utter, especially when one sees the state he is in. Dear classmate, it's all right. Do not blame yourself. Indeed, you have ventured into danger for so many days without finding sustenance, and that is not your fault. Although disappointment looms in everyone's heart, they rise to comfort Li Xiaofeng. The sound of him hitting the wall resonates painfully within them all. Such qualities amidst an apocalypse are truly rare. Li Xiaofeng, with his hands gripping his head, slowly comes to a halt. Observing the emotions in everyone's eyes, he notices some girls have even begun to weep. Feeling desolate, he retreats to a corner, his body trembling, evoking further sympathy. Yet, a flicker of joy ignites within Li Xiaofeng's heart. It seems that tomorrow he can set his plan into motion. The following day swiftly arrives, marking the 17th day since the outbreak. Everyone endures another day of starvation. Li Xiaofeng, taking the initiative, departs with 5 companions. As they watch him walk away, tears well up in the eyes of many. Chen Qinshu, witnessing this scene, feels an intensified urge to ensnare Li Xiaofeng. How could one garner such loyalty? 3 hours later, Li Xiaofeng enters a supermarket alone. The 5 who accompanied him have transformed into his 50 evolution points. The supermarket is stocked with ample supplies, and the overwhelming number of zombies outside deters any survivors from approaching. He diligently transfers various goods out. An electric tricycle is parked outside, which he soon fills with an assortment of provisions, including copious amounts of drinking water and food. He even takes over 100 paper cups. After a thorough search, he ultimately retrieves 3 lollipops. Li Xiaofeng opens all the drinking water bottles, allowing his blood-stained fingers to soak within. The water becomes slightly murky, but is quickly diluted, its color fading under the dim light, rendering it difficult to discern. Let us have a hearty meal before setting off, Li Xiaofeng muses, impressed by his own cunning in devising such a remarkable plan of poisoning. Prepare to face the wrath of the zombie overlord, mere mortals. He brandishes a toy sword, pointing it at the blood-red sun, releasing a chilling roar, filled with malevolence. Bang! The electric tricycle crashes directly into a tree. He leans forward, causing his head to collide with the front of the vehicle. Chapter 39. Brotherhood. Qinshinshu is still at the activity center, plotting his scheme. He is determined to send a few trusted subordinates with Li Xiaofeng tomorrow, placing all blame on the zombies when the time comes. Suddenly, a series of horn blasts interrupts his contemplation, followed by the astonished exclamations of numerous students. Wow, so much food. How is this possible? A hero. You are akin to my reborn parents, my dear elder brother Qinshin, whose expression shifted as he exited the small room. His gaze fell upon Li Xiaofeng, clad in leather, returning in an electric tricycle. Is it possible to navigate the apocalypse with such nonchalance? Is he not concerned about the threat of infection by zombies? Yet, he soon dismissed such musings, for the vehicle was laden with an abundance of food and water. The once despondent students were invigorated, as sustenance rekindled their hope. Qinshin's eyes sparkled with joy as he hurried forward, calling out to the crowd. From this moment forth, these provisions would belong to him. Quickly, everyone, assist our hero in bringing everything inside. Suddenly, dozens of students found an inexplicable surge of strength, transporting copious amounts of food and water into the premises, an entire load of provisions. Since the outbreak of the apocalypse, this was the first time they had experienced such elation. Fearing the approach of zombies, they hastened their pace, swiftly relocating the supplies indoors. You all have worked hard. Today, each person shall receive a loaf of bread, Qinshin declared with a smile, instructing Zhang Xingming to distribute small loaves to everyone. Tears glistened in their eyes, their gratitude for Li Xiaofeng deepening. It was time. Li Xiaofeng stepped forward, adjusting his sunglasses and tossing his hair with flair. He activated his protagonist aura. Ding! Activation successful. He extended his arms, signaling for silence. In an instant, the entire activity center fell into a hushed stillness. All eyes were drawn to him, inexplicably captivated by the commanding presence he exuded. Excitement coursed through the crowd, some unable to contain their cheers. Such a person is our true leader. Brother, I, Xiaolong, shall follow you from now on. So will I, Xiaodong. I too will heed your call, Xiaochang. With the unexpected bounty of food and Li Xiaofeng's charismatic influence, the atmosphere became electric. Each person's expression was touched, their eyes glistening with tears as they gazed at him. Qinshin, however, wore a somber countenance, taken aback by the rapid turn of events. Yet, he maintained a gentle demeanor, concealing his inner turmoil. Li Xiaofeng himself was astonished by how smoothly everything unfolded. His heart racing with excitement. Trembling, he produced paper cups, distributing them to everyone present, pouring in the drinking water he had brought back. Each individual grasped his hand with an unsteady yet fervent grip. This scene was indeed a rare spectacle, destined to be etched in history, although separated by gloves. The warmth and reassurance they felt were genuine. Soon, some discerned Li Xiaofeng's intentions and eagerly took their cups, filling them with water. Not a single soul drank before him. They all patiently awaited his next gesture. Qinshin, maintaining his outward calm while holding a cup, occasionally revealed glimmers of resentment in his gaze. Li Xiaofeng observed that everyone around him had raised their paper cups, and his heart swelled with excitement, causing his body to tremble. Hundreds of evolution points were within reach. He took out a small piece of bread, inserted 3 lollipops into it, and lit the candy wrappers with a lighter. As he gazed at the 3 burning lollipops, he felt an overwhelming sense of ritual. Everyone's expressions were deeply moved. Was he truly about to bond with all of them? Chapter 40. Surge in evolution points. Li Xiaofeng slowly scanned the faces of each individual, his demeanor solemn and dignified. He raised his paper cup high, and everyone eagerly followed suit, lifting their cups in unison. Without hesitation, he drank it all in one go. Upon finishing, he turned the empty cup towards the crowd. In response, everyone drank eagerly, feeling a sense of camaraderie akin to ancient brotherhood amidst this apocalyptic world. From now on, let our ranks be established from front to back, from left to right. Zhang Xingming exclaimed excitedly, fully immersed in the atmosphere. Elder brother, second brother, third brother, fourth brother, fifth brother, 32nd brother, 79th brother. Li Xiaofeng watched the touching scene before him, his body quivering as he removed his sunglasses, revealing his intensely crimson eyes. Elder brother, your eyes are red. Do not cry. Yes, elder brother, your eyes are unusually red. The crowd comforted him, their gazes fixed on his eyes. Li Xiaofeng's lips twitched slightly, his scarlet gaze sweeping over each individual. Devoid of tears, only reflecting a wild indifference. Elder brother's eyes seem somewhat eerie. Why do I feel they resemble those of the zombies outside? A sense of unease crept into everyone's hearts, awakening them to the dread of their situation. The ultimate fear began to spread slowly. Countless paper cups fell to the ground, and disbelief gripped each person. Roar! Li Xiaofeng let out a fierce cry, his heart ablaze with exhilaration. Struggle within the abyss of blood and darkness. Suffer within the hell of hatred and vengeance. The air was filled with terrified screams, even drawing the nearby zombies closer. Yet soon, some began to feel their consciousness fading. We have truly bonded with a zombie. This was the singular thought that occupied everyone's mind at that moment. It was like a theatrical performance, but the ending was destined for tragedy. Chen Qinso was engulfed in terror. Despite his many calculations, he could never have anticipated that Li Xiaofeng would be a zombie. Now he understood why those who had searched for food alongside Li Xiaofeng had disappeared. Wasn't this a pure act of self-destruction? His consciousness too began to blur, and although he had only taken a sip, he was still infected. Li Xiaofeng paid no heed to the panicked crowd. Instead, he fixated on the 3 lollipops burning before him. To his surprise, this first act of brotherhood brought him immense joy. Ding! Host successfully infected 1 individual. Evolution points increased by 10. Ding! The host has successfully infected 1 individual, gaining 10 evolution points. Ding! The host has successfully infected another, adding another 10 points. Roar! A bountiful harvest, Li Xiaofeng exclaimed with unrestrained excitement, as the electronic voice echoed consistently in his mind. The cold, mechanical tones brought him an unexpected sense of familiarity at that moment. After lying in wait for days, his efforts were finally being rewarded. Ding! The host's evolution value has reached 500, fulfilling the prerequisites for advancement. The host begins the evolution process. The host's evolution is complete. Current rank, Tier 1 Elite Zombie. The host's strength, speed, vision, and hearing have all significantly enhanced. Li Xiaofeng clenched his fists. Feeling an overwhelming sense of joy, he now perceived that his speed, strength, and agility had far surpassed that of humans. Not only could he easily secure a silver medal against the elderly, but he could also effortlessly win gold at the most prestigious human athletic competitions. An unprecedented sense of power surged within him. A student, with a mind clouded by confusion and intense hatred towards Li Xiaofeng, charged recklessly forward. Li Xiaofeng extended his right hand slightly, effortlessly grasping the student's throat, his crimson eyes coldly fixed upon him. Bang! With a casual flick, the student was sent flying several meters, colliding with multiple others. This formidable strength was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The disparity between an elite zombie and a regular one was monumental. Yet, the surprises did not cease. The indifferent electronic voice continued to resonate incessantly.